Hey guys, welcome to Green Bean Fiction. So in today's video we are gonna see what if Superman Deku fell in love with Ashido Mina, part 2. Before starting, make sure to hit that like button and subscribe if you are interested in MHA fanfictions. This story is The Big Blue Boy Scout by Lestat 719. Now without wasting any more time, let's dive in. Akane Midoriya. Akane waited for the bell to ring, thankful that the week had concluded. She pulled her long, curly hair into a ponytail, her luminous green eyes fixed on the final countdown to freedom. She couldn't wait to get home, get out of her uniform, and relax. Her mind drifted to what her mother had told her earlier. So I arranged for you to hang out with someone this Saturday, Inko told her. Akane looked up from her notebook, confused. What do you mean you arranged for me to hang out with someone? Did you set me up on a playdate? Inko laughed at her daughter's terminology but thought about it. You know what I think I did. Mom. She protested, turning red and thanking the heavens that no one else was in the house to hear this. Why would you do that? I thought he was nice, Inko said innocently. Mom, Akane protested quickly. Wait, he? Her eyes narrowed. You better not be trying to set me up on a date. I know he isn't Katsuki, Inko smirked as Akane made gagging noises. Ew. Just ew Mom, Akane said. And not after I found out he had a girlfriend, though Inko might have muttered that last part. What was that? Akane inquired. Nothing, dear, Inko said. No, it is not a date. He is the son of a pro hero I met at the hospital. He wants to be a hero and go to UA. I figured it would be nice of you to talk to someone else who wants to run around and make their poor mothers worry all night. Akane sighed. Son of a pro, huh? Akane said quietly. And Inko knew she had her daughter hooked. If anything, she knew her daughter couldn't resist the chance to talk about pro heroes and their quirks with someone. Look, you don't have to stay long if you don't want to, or I can even call and cancel, Inko said. Who is the pro? Akane said. Midnight, Inko said with a devilish grin. Back to reality, the bell rang as she gathered her stuff. Yo, aka, you want to come karaoke with us? Her friend asked. Nini is going to invite Katsuki and the guys. Akane turned to her tawny-haired friend. Sure, Kami. All right, aka is coming, said their other friend Dahlia. Dahlia was a bit taller than Akane at 5 feet 3. Her skin was beautiful alabaster, with these black lines almost tattooed on, pitch black hair with white tips, and her eyes were all white, except the black lines that ran through them. She was genuinely exotic looking and gorgeous. So cool, Kami explained, grabbing Akane by the arm. Do you want to come hang out tomorrow? Akane looked at her two friends, hope beaming in their eyes. Sorry, I have to do something for my mom, she said, seeing the light die, but if it wraps early, I will give you a call. The three girls exited the crowded halls, seeing Nini coming, followed by Katsuki, Tsubasa, and Haifu. Katsuki wore his usual scowl, his ash-blonde hair in its traditional spiky style, and his red eyes flickered with annoyance as he stalked toward Akane and her group. Tsubasa smiled like always, his wings folded on his back as he maneuvered past the other students. His brown hair was a traditional windblown mess, as always, but he was too busy talking with Nini, who he had an obvious crush on. Nini, for her part, knew about the crush and kept dropping hints for him to ask her out, but he had yet to pick up on her signals. Her long black hair was in a simple braid down her back, and her black eyes would dart this way and back as she talked with Tsubasa. Lastly was Haifu. His hat was pulled down low over his eyes like always. It was a wonder the boy could see well enough not to bump into things as he walked. His messy black hair was contained underneath, as always. This is a waste of time. We should hit the arcade for a bit, then go train, Bakugo nearly growled. The vein in his forehead ticked in annoyance when everyone groaned. Dude, all we do is go the arcade and then train, Kami replied. That shit is tiring as hell. Fine, don't cry to me when you damn extras don't make it into UA. He clicked his tongue. Come on, Akane. I don't feel like training today, Akane said, shrugging her shoulders. It has been a long week. I will go karaoke with my friends. Besides, going to the arcade all the damn time is boring. The girls nodded. Fine, but we are training double tomorrow, he huffed. Nope, got plans, Akane said. The girls said they did. Katsuki turned and looked at the guys. I have to help my grandfather move some stuff, Tsubasa said quickly. Haifu, little sister's recitals, he shrugged. No way I can get out of that. Whatever you damn extras, he yelled, stomping off. Playdate. Have fun on your playdate, Mina yelled, smirking as Izuku rolled his eyes. It is not a playdate, he yelled back, her laughter greeted him. I mean, I guess it could be fun, he said casually. I hear she wants to be a hero, works hard all the time, and is a good student. Mina stopped laughing. Mom did say she was pretty cute, his step slowed. But it's nothing. We're just going to walk around an outdoor mall, maybe ride the carousel. I think there is that grand opening of what is that store, he snapped his fingers a few times. Edge of the Galaxy, he smiled, that's the ticket. Mina raced from her spot and dived, wrapping her arms around his neck. Izuku, she whined. I want to be a hero. I work hard. Sometimes. And my grades have gone up this year. Mina tried fruitlessly to yank him back. And I am fucking adorable, she said with a pout. She let out an eep as he whirled around, lifted her, and kissed her suddenly. Is she really cute? Mina said, still pouting. Mina, other girls may be cute, but you are magnificent, he replied when they broke apart. I have no idea. All I know is that she had green hair and green eyes. No one can hold a candle to you. Not even Ragdoll, Mandalay, or Pixie Bob, Mina teased, remembering how her boyfriend had been shy when he met the group at her mother's agency last week. Don't forget Tiger, he added. I would have to say maybe you tie with Tiger, he teased. I can live with that, she smiled. They kissed, leaving each other weak in the knees. I love you, she whispered when they pulled apart. I love you more, he said, floating in the air. Akane looked at the dress her mother had laid out for her and immediately squashed that idea. Instead, she opted for a pair of black jeans, boots, and her brand new all-might shirt. She grabbed her keys and headed out to catch her train, wanting to arrive on time. The train wasn't overcrowded like it was in the mornings for school since it was a Saturday. She got off at her destination and crossed to the Tagada shopping plaza. She found the clock stand at the entrance and saw a good-looking boy standing there. He had black hair, green eyes like her, blue jeans, and a white fitted shirt that read Sound of Fury. He is cute, she thought as she approached. She noticed he was looking around, and as soon as he saw her, he watched her approach. Midoriya? He asked when she came within earshot. Kayama. She said back. When he nodded and smiled, she relaxed slightly. He bowed slightly. It is nice to meet you, he greeted her. She returned the greeting, and they both felt awkward. So I hear you want to go to the UA? That's right, Akane said, relaxing a little more. I am a pyrokinetic. That is pretty awesome. Can you make the fire as well or control it? He said, his eyes gleaming slightly. Make and control it, she smiled. I can even solidify it some. That is amazing. It would be best if you practiced a lot to have so much control, he responded as they started to walk into the shopping district. I am surprised to see you wearing All Might. I would have guessed you would favor Endeavor. Akane smiled. I like Endeavor. He is very talented with his control and stuff, but his attitude is just kind of crappy? I guess. That tracks, he laughed. All right, tell me about your quirk, she said excitedly. I heard you were Midnight's son. So, have you had a gas attack like her or something? No, Izuku said, noticing her excitement. It is all physical, he flexed his arm. I take after my dad. So, a strength quirk? Kind of, we call it Vitruvian, he responded. Vitruvian? She said, slightly confused, before she snapped her fingers. Like Da Vinci's Vitruvian Man. Pretty interesting, she smirked at him. Izuku blushed slightly. My quirk affects my whole body, strength, speed, skin, and senses. Well, that makes sense then. You're not just a normal man. You're a Superman, she laughed. That is a powerful quirk. You are probably a shoe-in for UA. I wouldn't dare say that, but I think I have a good chance, he responded. Good, you're humble about it, at least, she said. So Kayama, do you have a first name? Izuku. You can call me Akane. She looked around the district. What do you do for training? Izuku did his best to answer her questions. Leaving out the training at UA, he was happy to hear how hard she worked herself along with some kids from her school. They all wanted to be heroes, of course. She didn't know if they would make it, but they wanted to try. She told him about her friend Katsuki Bakugo and his quirk, Explosion. That is a strong quirk. It sounds like he's super serious, Izuku chuckled as they bought something to drink. All the damn time, Akane sighed. All he talks about is how he will be better than All Might and beat down all the villains. He is super competitive. It gets annoying. Is it bad that I find one of my best friends annoying sometimes? I don't think so, Izuku said. He sounds very driven, but dealing with someone who is hyper-competitive and fixated can get tiring sometimes. You have to be able to relax and have some fun now and again. Also, heroics is about more than just beating up villains. I tell him that all the time, and he gets all pissed off. If I score better than him on a test or place higher on the exams, she brought her hands together and made an explosion sound as she separated them. It is cool that it makes me work harder. He pushes me, you know, Izuku nodded. But sometimes, she motioned like she was choking someone. I get it. There is this guy in my class. We call him Lex, and he gets all bent out of shape about the weirdest things. Izuku pointed towards a figuring store. Akane nodded. When I beat him for class president, you would have thought I stole his dog or something. Some people just can't stand to lose, she said as they entered. No one likes to lose, and I sure as hell don't, but when I do, I just try to figure out how it happened and work harder. That is the right mindset. Izuku smiled as he saw a figure of his mother. Do you ever talk to him about his viewpoint on heroics? Sometimes, but that normally leads to a fight. Akane was looking over an All Might figure. What is it like having a pro hero for a mom? She pointed at the Midnight figure. Especially the rated R heroine. Most people don't know that my mom is a pro, so that helps, he said as they moved deeper into the store. It sucks reading all the stuff they put out online and on message boards, he sighed. Seeing thousands of people say how they have fantasies about her is not fun. I didn't think about that, Akane said. Is she like that at home? Nope, he said, smiling as he found a small eraser head figure. She is just a mom at home, which is normal. She loves dancing, singing, playing, and being super protective. Typical mom stuff. Akane asked. She smiled when he nodded in agreement. That is cool to hear. From what you read online, you think she is all crazy parties. All those rumors of her dating every hero out there must suck. He nodded. I don't think she has gone on a date that I can recall. She may and may not just have said anything. What about your dad, though? Akane said, concerned. He died before I was born, Izuku said. He was an artist and was on a flight to America when his plane went down. Oh, Akane said, feeling like she had shoved her foot down her throat. Sorry I didn't. It's okay, he responded. No one knows like it isn't common knowledge that she has a son. So if you could. Of course, I promise. You are right. I don't think I have read anywhere about her having a kid. Akane looked at the figure in his hands. Is that Eraserhead? Yeah, I am surprised you know him, he said, shocked. He is an underground hero. There isn't a lot out there about him, but I found that he is pretty cool, she said. He is kind of like my uncle, he said, then pointed to a present mic poster. Him too. They went to school with my mom. That is so cool. I love his show, Akane beamed. Do you think you can get me an autograph? I promise, he answered. She beamed at him. So, do you get to meet many heroes? She pushed. Not as many as you think, he said as he moved from the hero section to movie creatures. Her sidekicks, of course. I did just meet the wild pussycats. He pulled out his phone and showed her a photo. Oh, and Recovery Girl. Whoa, how did you meet Recovery Girl? Akane said, stunned. She is close with my mom and has been my doctor my whole life, he said sheepishly. Wait, does that mean you have been to UA? She had stopped walking. A few times, he lied. She has a separate place that we normally go to. That is so damn cool, she gushed. You like xenomorphs? Izuku smiled. I don't mind them, but my girlfriend has this weird obsession with them. Oh, you have a girlfriend? Akane teased, also slightly disappointed. Does she want to be a hero? Izuku nodded. Is she the daughter of another pro? No, her parents aren't pro heroes. They don't even work in the field, he said, showing Akane a picture of him and Mina from Alien World. We met in school, childhood friends kind of thing. That's awesome. Akane paused. Do you and her fight like I do with Katsuki? No, nothing like that. Izuku had a bit of a goofy look on his face for a moment. I have to make sure she stays focused on schoolwork because she likes to have fun, but she drags me into it. It is a good counterbalance. That is good then, Akane replied as they made their way to the front so he could make his purchases. Maybe if we get together again, you can meet her? Izuku asked. I think I would like that, Akane said, standing off as he paid. I was annoyed my mom set up this play date, but I am glad she did. You're a cool dude. Izuku laughed. That is what my girlfriend called it also, but I am glad our mothers set this up. He held up his phone. Want to exchange contact info? Akane nodded, pulling out her phone. They tapped them together, and the telltale ding told them it worked. Are you hungry? There is an all-American dinner around the corner. Hell yeah, I love that place, Akane said as they walked off. Caught in the act, Cammy, Nini, and Dahlia had just exited their favorite clothing store, Emporium, and talked about getting food when Nini stopped dead. Isn't that Akane? She said, pointing across the way toward All-American. Cammy and Dahlia turned, and sure enough, they saw her sitting in a booth by the window, and she wasn't alone. Some guy was sitting across from her, laughing and having a grand time. Holy shit, is she on a date? Dahlia said. It looks like it, Cammy said, slightly stunned. She said she had to do something for her mom but would call me if it wrapped up early. Cammy pulled out her phone and dialed Akane. They saw her pick up her phone and step away from the table. Hey, Cammy, her voice rang out. What's up? Oh, nothing much, Cammy said casually. I called to see if you were done with that thing for your mom so you could come hang out. Sorry, but no, Akane replied. It seems like it is going to take a while. Oh, that sucks. Well, talk to you later, Cammy said, ending the call. They watched as Akane returned to the table and conversed with the boy. Dude, she is totally on a date, Dahlia said. He is pretty cute, at least. I bet Katsuki would be so mad, Nini giggled. If he found out, she blew off training for a date. What are we going to do? Dahlia asked. Cammy took some pictures before putting her phone away. If she is on a date, let's not mess it up for her. We can interrogate her about it later, Cammy smiled. Come on, I want to eat. Explosion House. What are you doing, her brat? Mitsuki asked as she saw her son sitting on the couch watching television. Watching television, you hag, Bakugo yelled back, the vein in his forehead ticking. I can see that, Mitsuki's voice raised, matching his. Then why are you asking stupid questions? Bakugo got to his feet. What did you? Mitsuki stomped into the living room. Mitsuki. Bakugo. Masaru Bakugo's father yelled as he walked into the house carrying groceries. Both his wife and son immediately stopped. Katsuki, quit yelling at your mother and go get the groceries. Mitsuki, what did the doctor say? That my blood pressure is out of control, and it isn't good for the baby, she sheepishly replied, unconsciously placing her hand on her belly. Exactly, he kissed her cheek tenderly. I have a bit of a headache, so if you two could keep it down, that would be great. You have been getting those a lot lately, Mitsuki said, placing her hand on his forehead. Also, you look so pale. She leaned forward so their heads were touching. I want you to make an appointment with the doctor. Why don't you go lay down? But the groceries, and, he began to protest. He stopped seeing the concern on his wife's face. Maybe you were right, he said, setting the bags on the counter and gingerly walking towards their bedroom. Katsuki came stomping back in but stopped seeing his dad disappear into the bedroom. What is going on with Dad? All anger or annoyance was gone from his voice. He isn't feeling well, so I told him to go lay down, Mitsuki responded softly, looking down the empty hallway. I will need your help putting groceries away and dinner tonight. Katsuki nodded, struggling to take his gaze away from the hallway. What did the doctor say? Your little sister is developing just fine, Mitsuki said as, like her son, she had difficulty tearing her thoughts away from her husband. Why are you not out training or something? Katsuki could feel his voice about to rise in anger, but he looked towards the hallway and made sure to keep his voice down. Everyone has stuff to do, even stupid Akane. She said she has to do something for Auntie. But whatever, if those stupid extras don't make it into the UA, that is on them. Mitsuki raised an eyebrow. Inko said she would meet someone today. Are you sure she isn't hanging out with the girls? She noticed her son tense a bit. No, Cammy said it was just her, Nini, and Delilah, he grumbled. Who is she meeting? I don't know, but Inko wouldn't say. But she bought her a cute dress for today. Mitsuki paused. Maybe she is going on a date. Mitsuki watched as emotions danced rapidly across her son's face before it became a scowl. You know she is an adorable girl and is getting more beautiful daily. Someone is going to notice that sooner or later. Whatever, Katsuki growled. It is not like I care. If that stupid Deku would rather make kissy faces with some loser than train. Are you sure about that? Mitsuki pressed, making Katsuki's eyebrow twitch. Quote the raven Reiko Yanagi stood before her greatest enemies. With a tremble in her lip, she took a deep breath and waged into battle. The conflict was inevitable, she had to engage, if not, her prize would forever be lost. Pulling up her hood, she lowered her head and stepped onto the battlefield. Her arch nemesis, sunlight and crowds, would not win out today. Pulling the purple hood of her cloak down more, she started to make her way through the crowds. Not only would this help to protect her from the sunlight, but she would not have to meet the gaze of strangers. She was deftly maneuvering through the battlefield, though she had to seek shelter occasionally. She had unknowingly stumbled into an enemy encampment when the artificial smell of summer flowers and various floral scents alerted her to her folly. Turning, she froze. She had stumbled not into just any enemy encampment but the den of the enemy most feared. A viper's den, a temple of horrors, the beauty nest by Uwabami. She was frozen in her fear, which proved to be her undoing. The priestesses of Uwabami took her inaction as consent. Her protests, though weak, failed to manifest from her mind to her voice. She was in the seat before she could even think to struggle. Her hood was removed, and the light of day assaulted her with unrelenting brightness. Then they descended en masse, the second most terrifying word she had ever heard, the first being pastels. Makeover. Things were being applied to her, things she did not know the name of. Ancient devices of torture made their way into the fray. Tweezers. How could this be allowed? Reiko thought, surely some peace treaty in a faraway land had outlawed such things. But these renegades cared not for such treaties as they descended upon her. She winced and begged for mercy, but they would give no quarter. Like a tornado of violence, they had their wicked way with her. Time ceased to have any meaning, a blur of torment, a cyclone of evil. It enveloped her mind, destroying her mental defenses till all she could do was nod and agree with the captors. She was hoping desperately to gain favor and curry a release from their grasp so she could once again walk the darkened streets of her home. To pull the curtains tight and lose herself in the musings of the masters of the macabre. She tried desperately to cling to the words of these ancient masters, King, Karloff, Lovecraft, Jackson, and Poe. She hoped invoking them would bring about a dark storm of the unknowable, a reign of darkness that would drive them from her. She was suddenly on her feet, moving again, a counter. Why was she passing over her money card, nodding like a fool? They hold a bag for her. Is it her dignity it carries, her blood, some other evil? Yet she thanks them and takes it, stumbling unthinkingly back into the open air of the marketplace. She doesn't even think of grabbing her hood to protect her from the sunlight. Her folly is her undoing. It stabs at her eyes. She stumbles and barrels away, seeking respite. Instead, she stumbles into a wall, and her feet slip and tumble. Gravity, the immutable law, will claim her to this day. Maybe she was foolish. Maybe she dared to dream too strongly, and like Icarus, she soared above her station and was now plummeting back to the earth. It had been a short life. She hoped that her parents were not too bereft with grief, that they would mourn the appropriate time of 7 years. Her final thought was of her beloved Shadow. How would he survive with her to feed him and give him his treats? Hopefully, her mother would see him. She braced for her death, the sweet kiss of oblivion, the cool embrace of dark. Instead, she felt a strong arm slip around her waist, and a hand of iron caught her arm, and the warmth of being pulled from the brink by a demigod. She turned, her pale gray hair parted, the red jewel on her forehead glinted in the sunlight. Her blue eyes somewhat lidded beheld the demigod who had rescued her from the precipice of death. Black hair and green eyes gazed at her, the whispered greeting, "Are you unharmed, miss?" Izuku and Akane they had finished their lunch, and Akane led Izuku to a small bookstore. When they entered, he smiled as the two workers greeted her by name, making her blush. She was picking up a book written over a century ago by an old Japanese hero named Sunfire. He listened to her gush about the old pro, talking about how the techniques he pioneered had been passed down among fire heroes like a Bible. She mentioned how even Endeavor quoted the book and was excited about the purchase. He liked how when a topic came up or something that excited her, her entire face would come alive. Her eyes seemed to glow and sparkle. And it was the topics that caught Izuku's attention. Heroes, quirks, right and wrong, and helping people. She had a very positive view of heroics, of trying to walk the path of helping people and the law. Akane liked this boy, not so much in a romantic way, but the fact he was easy on the eyes certainly was a bonus. But he shared her view on heroics, and when he disagreed, he would listen and offer a counterpoint. He would ask her the best question. What happens after that? She blushed when she talked to her friends. She only sometimes would speak with her like this, and that was more so Kami. Katsuki, if it was all about beating the villain, no probing questions were asking why. Societal issues didn't mean a thing. She had anticipated that he would tell her everything was good, but she was surprised to hear that he saw things that could be better and that it wasn't just him, that his mother talked a lot about social issues. She had known Midnight to speak out on some issues but not about what he talked to her about. Izuku talked a lot about volunteer work, saying that his mother would help with different charities but not in costume to advertise her work. It wasn't about the publicity. She was surprised that Midnight was very into nature and maintaining hiking trails. She liked that Izuku was nerdy like her. He was into astronomy and fascinated by the stars. During a meteor shower, he told her about his father's proposal to his mother. He and his mom would go on a hike yearly, and he would occasionally sneak out to stargaze with his girlfriend. Akane enjoyed how he gushed about his girlfriend Mina, happily showing her pictures. Akane told him that she wanted to meet Mina next time and that she might bring her friend Kami, but the world might explode once those two got together. She was happy to stand in line with him at the opening of Edge of the Galaxy. It was a brand new store catering to outer space enthusiasts, but the kicker was that the space-themed Hero 13 would be present to sign autographs and take photos for the grand opening. He had promised to pick up a limited edition grand opening shirt and keychain. She thought it was cute how he was going to such lengths for Mina. They were standing in line with a girl from Mie Prefecture. Her auburn hair was cut in a cute bob style. The color matched her eyes, and she had what seemed to be a permanent bush to her cheeks. Her name was Ochako Uraraka. Izuku and Akane fell into easy conversation with the girl. She was excited about meeting 13 and hoped to become a hero like them. This, of course, prompted Akane to ask about her quirk, zero gravity. Ochako was a bit shy but soon was overwhelmed by their enthusiasm. She didn't have anyone to talk about heroics and such at home. Soon, she was pulled into the conversation and couldn't stop smiling. Akane could barely contain her laughter when Izuku and Ochako discovered their shared love of the stars. The lively discussion allowed them not to notice how long they were in line until they found themselves at the front. They all got their autographs and memorabilia. Ochako even briefly talked about heroics with her favorite hero before she moved on and waited for Akane and Izuku. The trio exchanged contact information as Ochako had to meet up with her parents for their trip home. Izuku and Akane went through the shopping arcade, discussing small things as their day drew close. They had stopped so she could pick something up from the stationery store when, as she came out, she saw someone barrel into Izuku. She watched as he moved faster than she could perceive and caught the girl before she fell. "Are you unharmed, miss?" he asked. Nevermore Reiko sat staring up at her savior, who set her on her feet, ensuring she was stable before he removed his hands. "I apologize for putting my hands on you without your permission," Izuku bowed. "No," Reiko said quickly. "Thank you for saving me." "Do you need to sit down for a moment?" Akane said as she extended an unopened water bottle. Reiko started shaking her head, but then she felt herself wobble. Izuku and Akane guided her over to a bench. Once she sat down, she pulled up her hood and took a small drink of water as she regained her composure. "I am so sorry for causing the both of you any trouble," Reiko said, hiding her embarrassment behind her hood. "I don't do well with crowds." They looked at each other and then at the crowded shopping arcade. "Where were you trying to get to?" Akane wondered aloud. "Eclipse," Reiko said. "I ordered something, and it came in today." "I know that store," Akane said with a smile. Reiko looked at her. "I have a friend, Dahlia. She loves that store." "White skin, black lines?" Reiko asked quizzically. When Akane nodded, Reiko smiled slightly. "I know her. We talk online some. We met there when I was buying the new Darkness album." Izuku smiled as Akane and Reiko kept talking. Akane talked to her about something Reiko was interested in, which helped her relax. Eventually, Akane had exhausted what she knew about the topic. Feeling better, Akane tilted her head to the side slightly. Reiko nodded, realizing what the girl had done. "Thank you, I am Reiko." The green-haired girl smiled. "I am Akane, and that is Izuku." Izuku smiled. "I apologize for interrupting your date." Reiko bowed. They both immediately waved their arms, protesting that it was certainly not a date. Reiko tilted her head to the side when this happened. Didn't that mean it was a date? She wondered. "How about we go with you?" Izuku asked. "I have never been to that shop, I want to check it out." Reiko was going to protest, but she felt it would be rude to do so after all they had done for her. They probably just wanted to ensure she was alright. "Yes, that sounds nice. Let us depart." Izuku walked into Eclipse and was assaulted by the lack of color and loud, angry music. He had to concentrate for a moment due to the store's volume and his hearing. Once that was done, he followed the girls around the store. Reiko approached the counter, and Akane wandered around the store. At first, Izuku smiled, seeing a few things with his mother's name but not what it implied. As he walked about the store, he happened to make his way to the back, where he found himself in the land of leather and lace. He found himself staring at the things on the wall, and when he came across a leather corset, his mind immediately filled it in with a pink-skinned girl he knew very well, images of her in leather pants, a leather skirt, patterned stockings, maybe even a garter belt. He shook his head and fled to where Akane was looking at a wall of shirts. Scanning the wall, he found a few of his mom's shirts and a perfect shirt for Mina. It had the xenomorph queen sitting on a throne with the caption, "Long live the queen." Reiko came over, holding her package with a huge smile. After Izuku made his purchase, they exited the shop. "Thank you both for coming with me," Reiko smiled. "Reiko." A deep mocking voice suddenly rang in her head. "How easily you smile, sweet little raven, my dear, never born. How easily you pretend. How easily you smile. Would they share your smile? Would they show such compassion? I need to remind you that you belong to me. You can run and pretend all you want, but we both know how this ends. A gentle reminder is in order." Riko's smile faltered as she suddenly looked around, afraid. Izuku, as did Akane, picked up on the sudden change in her demeanor. Reiko scanned frantically, desperately searching, and then the screams began. All three of their heads whipped around towards the sound. It was then that out of the crowd, suddenly, 5 people came leaping out at them. They were all different. There were 3 men and 2 women. One of the men even appeared to be an elderly gentleman. What made them similar was that they all seemed to have 3 sets of eyes stacked one above the other. Each set glowed a brilliant fiery orange, and long protruding fangs and claws protruded from their hands with the same hue as their eyes. The lead woman was about to descend on Reiko before she or Akane could react, but that was not the case for Izuku, who stepped forward and grabbed the attacker's arms and threw them off to the side. He spun past a claw swipe from the second, shoving them aside. The third attacker's strike hit true, but what surprised Izuku was that the attack sent a flood of pain through him as it shredded his clothes and back, sending him to his knees. Reiko's quirk sprang to life. A purple glow surrounded the male attacker as he was flung away, crashing into the corner of a nearby shop. Akane took a deep breath as the air around her ignited her. A jet of fire manifested forth, and it solidified as much as she could, flying into the gut of the fourth attacker, sending them tumbling to the ground as they screamed in pain. Akane quickly shirted the pillar to their right. It expanded into a wall where Reiko had thrown the third attacker. Izuku managed to recover as the fifth came at him with a wild claw swipe. He quickly ducked under the attack and drove a solid blow to the attacker's gut, driving the wind from the attacker. Or it should have, but they were enhanced in some manner. Wasting no time, he drove a fist into the back of their head, driving them to the pavement. When they collided, a guttural groan escaped their lips, and the 2 sets of eyes faded, as did the claws. To Izuku, it seemed like an unknown power had taken them over, and whatever connection was there was severed when they lost consciousness. Akane was never more thankful for all that damn training Katsuki put her through. When the second attacker came at her, she stepped forward, planted her feet, twisted her hips, and launched a right hook. It is connected with thunderous force. All Might would have shuddered at how well she delivered the hit. It landed right on the chin, its head rotated, and all the eyes rolled as their lights were turned out. Reiko's eyes narrowed in annoyance as two of their attackers rose into the air and collided roughly before they fell to the ground unconscious. Izuku grabbed her, pulled her aside from a claw swipe, and turned the last attacker's lights out with a strong uppercut. He felt a pang of guilt as it was the old man who went crashing to the ground. Akane grabbed her hand, and as the screams of panic continued, Izuku could see more of the six-eyed people rushing around. He saw another group break from a pack and run at them, but Reiko stepped in front of her new friends before they got close. Azereth Metreon Zinthos, she called out as her hood and cloak fluttered by an unseen wind. Akane and Izuku watched in awe as most of the possessed attackers rose into the air. This time, though they were surrounded by purple energy, within that field, it turned black. The attackers were outlined in white as they rose into the air. Reiko raised her hand in a fist and screamed the strange words again. Akane and Izuku watched as all the people looked like they were being squeezed. Their heads drooped, and the signs of their possession faded. Gently lowered to the ground, Reiko stumbled and fell back as her eyes rolled back in her head. Izuku caught her quickly, lowering her to the ground. As he did so, Akane stepped in front of them, dancing around her fingers, scanning the crowd. They could hear the panic dying as their attackers were on the floor, and pro-heroes were flooding the area. Loved ones were rushing towards their fallen partners or family, confused and scared at what had happened. Izuku could see people trying to explain and pointing towards their group as many people were drawn by not only Akane's fire but Reiko's display before she passed out. He focused his hearing and could hear the responding heroes calling for more backup and emergency crews as they walked toward him. He suddenly wobbled. A searing heat was radiating from his back like it was on fire. As carefully as he could, he laid Reiko down. Akane turned to check on her new friends and saw Izuku sweating and looking like death warmed over. Holy hell, Izuku, are you alright? Akane said. Akane, he managed to choke out. Call your mother, I need, was all he said as his eyes rolled back into his head. He fell forward suddenly, but Akane was there to keep him from face planting. Kami was sitting on the ground, taking deep breaths. Everything had suddenly gone from a great shopping day to chaos. When the six-eyed monsters started attacking people, she called Nini and Dahlia to grab people and pull them into the store. When a psychos attacked them, Kami used her quirk to trap them in an illusion, making them fight each other until only one was standing. Nini activated her quirk amongst the panicked people, and an aura of calm and peace spread over them, leaving them almost zombie-like as they sat huddled in the back. Dahlia stepped in front of the group, the black lines running off her body and into the real world. She weaved them into a net to prevent anyone from coming through to the group. When the final psycho had managed to break through of Kami's illusion, he ran straight into the web. Dahlia collapsed it on him like a spider capturing a fly for later. When the heroes arrived, Kami released her quirk and sank down, taking a deep breath. Dahlia left the person cocooned until the heroes came in, and Nini fell to her knees, releasing people from their trance. As more and more officers flooded the scene, the attackers were being taken into temporary custody till it could be ascertained what exactly had happened. The heroes Harlequin and Ms. Joke had started to move towards the trio along with Jester when they saw the boy collapse. Quickly, they raced over. EMTs were arriving as all the chaos had hurt people, and the attackers had wounded some. What happened? Jester asked as he slid to the ground next to Akane, helping her to roll Izuku onto his side. Blood was beginning to stain the concrete around them from the deep gouge on his back. Ms. Joke came to Reiko's side and moved her out of the way. As she did so, Reiko's eyes fluttered open, and she attempted to sit up in a panic. It's okay, my girl. Everything is under control, and the heroes are on the scene, Ms. Joke said quickly. Reiko looked around and saw two heroes attending to Izuku. Jester scooped up Izuku. This kid is on fire, and we need to get him to the EMTs. What is his name? Izuku Kayama, Akane said quickly. His mother is Midnight. Jester's eyes widened slightly. Understood. Harlequin, see if you can raise her on the hero network. I didn't know she had a kid, Emmy muttered. Midnight. That is it. I will never let him out of my sight again, Namori screamed. She managed to hold her panic under control for the most part as she quickly contacted Chio, thankful that Izuku's grandmother had returned to the UA and was near enough to get to the hospital for Izuku. Nezu was scrambling to have his ambulance rerouted to the hero facility as containment was becoming a high priority. They didn't want Izuku's blood samples getting out into the world. There was also the concern that Ms. Joke, aka Emmy, had reported that Izuku was bleeding from a deep gash across his back and that he was running a fever. Izuku had never been sick with a cold for most of his life. There was only a small one not long after he arrived, but he shook it off quickly. Then there was the cut. To date, nothing of record had been able to cut him since he was 8. Needles, even special ones designed for people with super tough skin or invulnerability quirks, had stopped working at 10. Midnight hit the talk on her phone and said a silent prayer. "Brainiac?" The moments of silence that followed were deafening until a calm voice rang out from the car speakers. "Yes, Nomori Kayama? From the elevated tone in your voice, I can only surmise that something is wrong with Kal-El," Brainiac said. "He was attacked today while on an outing. He has been cut and is running a fever," Nomori said quickly. "He is being taken to a hospital as we speak. I am too far away. Shio is en route to him, and Nezu is trying to get him routed to Hero Hospital," she said as she weaved through traffic. "It would not be in Cal's best interest if others were to get a sample of his blood," Brainiac said, his tone measured. "It would be complicated to explain his sample." "I know that. Is there anything you can do?" Nomori pleaded. "Yes, give me a moment," Brainiac replied, and the deafening silence filled the car once again. "I am rerouting him to a private medical facility. They are under strict order to hold for Recovery Girl due to the unique mutation to his physiology. I am updating them that they are not to attempt to provide fluids, as his mutation will prevent them from puncturing his skin. They will be able to flush and pack the wound on his back. I am accessing this hospital's systems if they try to run the blood from the wound to see what the cause of the infection is. I am extremely concerned that something has injured him in such a fashion and with such ease." "You and me both," Nomori responded. "We need to put something in place in case this happens again." "I agree. I will begin a backlog of medical data showing that his mutation has affected him down to a cellular level," Brainiac said. "As his body absorbs solar radiation, thus giving him his powers, it can be explained that this has caused the mutation. While his body still will pass as human, it should deflect most concerns unless he becomes a case study for a geneticist." "Which hospital are you routing him to?" "Titan Medical is the closest facility to UA, he responded. "Thank you, Brainiac," Nomori said, feeling slightly better. "I understand your wish to thank me, but I am just doing what my programming dictates is in the best interest of Cal." Brainiac's voice rang out. "But you are welcome, Nomori Kayama." Nomori updated Nezu and Chio before she called Mina to let her know what had happened, as Izuku was unlikely to be home tonight. Mina was worried and a little panicked, but she held together when she learned Shio was on her way. After she extrapolated Midnight's promise to keep her updated, they disconnected. Nomori sighed as she sped from Tokyo to Mustafa. Maybe she needed to take that teacher position after all. Tormented dreams filled his mind, and nonsense and fear ran rampant. He saw Mina fall, her turn from him. Vicious mocking laughter filled his ears as he called to her to stay. Unseen shadows pulled her from him into a twisted embrace. At his feet would lie his mother and uncles, his grandfather cradling his grandmother's lifeless form and asking why he did it. Why had he brought such ruin and destruction upon the world? He looked about the hellish post-apocalyptic hellscape, the throne of bone and skull he sat upon, a feeling of barely satiated bloodlust lurking in his chest. He tried to ask for answers, but instead, cruel words tumbled from his lips as his heat vision reduced his grandfather to ash. Mina is thrown to the ground before him, dressed in rags and bound in chains, as he demands her obedience. Her tears, as she rebukes him, rebukes what he has become in the death of their love, that all affection in her has been burned away with his evil. She begs instead for death so that she may dream of the times when they danced in the sun, soared above the clouds, and she dared to believe that he was a good man. He can feel, as his hand slips around her throat, the gentle application of pressure. She doesn't fight or claw at his hand, instead, she smiles. As the light in her eyes fades, she thanks him for granting her this final gift. As she tumbles from his grasp, there is no sense of loss or remorse, a sense of the last shackle falling away and the last link in the chain being broken. Now there is nothing to stop him, nothing will hold him back. This world will struggle and fall in just a matter of days, then the next one, till there is nothing left but a place he has stepped upon and those who dared not to bend the knee. A guttural scream erupts from his lips as he bolts upright in a hospital bed. It echoes off the walls and vibrates the windows. Everything is in a daze out of focus. Something holds his arm, chains. He yanks them away, and the links clatter like explosions. He turns and can see the scraps of the bonds on the ground. With little strain, he pulls his other arm free. He tries to get out of bed but stumbles and falls. Tears begin to drop as he calls out, and the door bursts open as he staggers to his feet. Stumbling, he tries to use his hand to brace himself, only for it to go through the wall. Shadows fill the room, curses and threats muffled and constantly bombard him. He prepares to fight, to break free. His eyes glow red, and the shadows hesitate. He roars threats and promises of pain that they cannot keep him, that they will not hold him. A shadow leaps at him, grabbing his face. He is prepared to end this creature, then stops. Soft, divine hands were on the side of his face, and there was a scent of violet and vanilla, little pokes of pressure against his forehead, and curly hair pressing against him. The red of his eyes fades, the shadow begins to clear, and a voice calls him back, one of love, tenderness, comfort, and longing. The gentle pressure against his lips, familiar sweetness, and shadows wash away as his mind clears. Mina is kneeling before him, holding his face and kissing him. Hesitantly, fearfully, he kisses her back. He can hear her whispered calls to return to her, stop and turn to declarations of love. He returns her declaration, and as everything begins to come into focus, beyond Mina is his mother and hospital staff, as well as his uncles. As he and Mina break apart, he gives his mother a weak and tired smile. "Hi, Mom." As the room's chaos settles, Mina helps Izuku to his feet and back to the hospital bed. "Are you all right?" she whispers. "I am now," he replies, giving a tender brief kiss. "Honey, what happened?" his mother says, taking his hand. "Nightmares. Even when I woke up, they were still there. I couldn't see or hear anything. It was like everyone was wrapped in shadows," Izuku said. "They were horrible, so real, so..." Izuku takes a deep breath and does his best to recount the nightmares and their realistic nature. Hisashi hands Mina a damp cloth so she can wipe Izuku's brow and face as he is covered in sweat. She finishes this as Chio comes in. She tries in vain to get Nemi and Mina to step back before settling in on them, holding his hand as she examines him. "Well, the fever has finally broken," Chio says with a smile for her grandson. "We will need to run some tests back at UA before I feel comfortable releasing him. You gave us quite the scare there, young man. Being asleep for 3 days is not normal." "3 days?" he said, shocked. "Wait, are Akane and Reiko safe?" "Yes, they are fine," Nomori said. "There were some injuries during the attack, but everyone is fine." "Can you tell us everything you can remember?" Aizawa said, getting his attention. Izuku took a deep breath and recounted his day with Akane, including meeting Reiko and Ochako, lunch and shopping, and then the sudden attack. Everyone was very interested as he described how all the attackers had a similar look with red eyes and claws and how the claws injured him so easily. Aizawa felt a sense of pride that Izuku hadn't relied on his invulnerability but was caught off guard by multiple attackers. Izuku described the pain and how it threw him off momentarily as he had never experienced something like that and the shock of it being done so quickly. He even questioned if somehow his invulnerability had been broken. His mother assured him that was not the case as they couldn't puncture his skin to administer any IV or antibiotics. They could only do so somewhat through the wound on his back, which seemed to resist his accelerated healing that had passed in the first 24 hours, but the fever did not. The fever and fear of infection had brought Mina to his side. She worried he had not woken up. Nomori had confirmed that aside from when he was just a baby, there was no record of him ever being sick. Coupled with the threat of an unknown infection, it had caused a bit of a panic. A quick reassurance of Brainiac managing his medical records eased the sudden panic Izuku expressed about being in an actual hospital. Izuku was surprised when Hisashi and Aizawa chased the ladies out so Izuku could shower and get cleaned up. Aizawa helped him to the bathroom while Hisashi oversaw changing his linens and getting him a fresh gown. His uncle sat outside the shower, talking to Izuku to ensure his nephew didn't fall and hurt himself and asking questions about the encounter and his playdate. Once he had freshened up, the girls returned with Mina and his mother fussing over him. Food was brought in so he could eat. Once he ate, he would be released to Chio, who would take him back to UA to run tests. Aside from being slightly dehydrated, she felt he was in decent shape without more tests. Izuku was surprised to see texts and concerns from Akane and Reiko once he checked his phone, and there was even one from Lex. "Lex. If you are dead, have someone tell me so I can plan the party." Izuku. Sorry, still alive. Lex. Well, at least Mina won't cry. Mina was hesitant to leave him, but she had already missed a few days of school, and her parents were insistent that she return home now that Izuku was awake. The adults left the two teens alone to say their goodbyes as if it would be years and not a day or two before they would see each other again. Of course, they said goodbye by kissing, not so much with words. Mina pouted as they broke apart for the third last time, but a knock from his mother and an announcement about her imminent entry ensured that it would be. Once Mina and his uncles were gone, Nomori sat and smiled as she watched her son almost be a typical teenager, sending miss you texts to Mina and reaching out to new and old friends, letting them know he was better. She knew her son was destined for greatness. His powers screamed that he would be spoken of in the same breath as All Might, Endeavor, Stars and Stripes, Marvel, Primal, King, and other top heroes across the world, yet she fretted, she worried. With his ability to rarely be hurt in his big heart, she knew he would be running headlong into things that no one should and that he may be the only one who could. She looked at her son, the last rays of sunlight streaming in from the window, bathing him in a reddish glow. Izuku would fly higher and go farther than anyone could dream, and she knew she couldn't go with him. She wanted her boy to succeed and do better than her, but she may have wanted him to be closer for a while longer. He was running into tomorrow so quickly that she could barely keep up. She knew that one day, the sun would rise on the day when she had been left behind. The Luthors. You don't need to be here, son, Lionel said. Lex sighed. His father was a bit disheveled and not quite mad scientist level, but the look in his eyes betrayed the unhealthy obsession. That is where you are wrong, Dad, Lex said. I do need to be here. You can't keep running this as Black Op without telling the board what you are doing here or giving them something that will not make you seem like a madman. Look, the board can go pound sand. They can't make me do anything, Lionel said, both hands resting on the desk as his eyes bore into his son. What I am doing is the most critical thing in the world. You don't understand. Then help me to understand, Lex said, mirroring his father's posture. The board is going to move for a vote of no confidence and remove you as the head of Luthor Corp. I will have to step in at that point, cut your funding, and start getting you declared incapable of making financial decisions and take conservatorship over you. Lionel glared at Lex, and Lex could feel his father's tenuous hold on rational thought. I don't want to, but I can't have you burning your fortune trying to invent the better mousetrap. Dad, I know that you are doing this for a reason. I know that it scared you and is dangerous. Let me help. I will handle the board, but we must do this together. Lionel began to pace, muttering to himself. He ran his hands through his hair several times before stopping and taking a deep breath. I was contacted by an old friend who brought us on to a top-secret project, Lionel began. Now listen to me, Lex. This is why I haven't talked to the board. If I did, I would violate the contract, and the penalty would be stiff. But we were researching a vessel that had crash-landed in Fukushima. Lex took a seat. This hint of madness in his father's voice made Lex want to dismiss what his father was saying, but the pleading in Lionel's eyes made Lex, for now, at least, agree to listen. According to the reports and data, this vessel had crashed through a forest and buried itself in the mountains. The amazing part is that it seemed completely undamaged, not even a dent, Lionel said, his pace quickening. We immediately went to work, believing that maybe this was a secret aircraft of a foreign government, but no one had come forward to claim the vessel. Then it resisted everything we tried to put, even a scratch on it. Nothing, we couldn't even get a chip off of it, analyze it. Lex's eyes widened. Diamond drill? Lionel shook his head. Heated deep sea coring laser? Again, Lionel shook his head. Freezing? Malfor penetration? Lex kept rattling off things, and his father told him no to everything. The only thing that had elicited any response from the vessel was when the XR-28 series was used on it. Lex's eyes widened. Those were military-grade weapons. He sat down on the stool, slightly dumbfounded. What did it do? It destroyed the weapon, Lionel said. It didn't leave a mark on the vessel, but it was the first time we had gotten a response. We believed for a time that I was some drone, a remote vessel designed to observe, as we had the vessel under constant surveillance for years, and to the best of our knowledge, no one had come out. But if the drone reacted in a way to defend itself, why would it let itself sit in containment and not fulfill its mission? Lex said. His father motioned for him to keep going. Nothing on Earth that we are aware of could resist all those attempts without leaving some evidence behind, and if this were something created in a lab somewhere, then the cost would not be something any corporation could just write off. Lex stood and started to pace. For the onboard systems to react to a hostile threat means having unheard of battery or power capabilities. Again, nothing some could just let go without attempting to get it back. Lex stopped. So if the logical reason is that this can't be Earth-made, then it has to be extraterrestrial. It couldn't be a drone, it had to be a form of transport. Exactly, Lionel said. Then suddenly, the thing powered up. We detected a very faint signal that wasn't being sent anywhere on Earth. It was being beamed into space. It broke free of confinement and escaped. It must have emitted a minimal, trace amount of an unknown radiation, Lex said as he punched his hand. That is why you took that satellite and pointed towards the Earth. You want to see if that thing is still here, and if the ship carried that radiation, then maybe who or whatever it brought here does as well. Yes, son, yes. Lionel jumped for joy. You see, son, there are aliens here. I think with the advent of quirks, they have started to mingle among us as they can blend in easier if they had some physical mutation. They're here, and I believe that signal was some distress call, and I believe more are on the way. That is why I built this island. I am looking for a way not only for us to defend ourselves but protect us as well. You believe their intentions hostile? Lex asked. What happens when one race encounters another of inferior technology or what they deem inferior species? Lionel replied. Enslavement or extinction, Lex said quietly, and if they are peaceful? Then we are about to make contact with a peaceful race, but we cannot assume that all we encounter will be as such. The question of whether we are alone in the galaxy has been answered, but we do not know their intentions, Lionel said. Now, do you understand why I need to keep working? Lex nodded, yes, but we need to give the board something. We need a trickle of inventions from this place, something we can sell and market. As long as revenue is generated, that will keep them quiet. I think we have a few things we can give them, Lionel said with a smile. What do you want me to do? Lex said. You have done enough by coming here, listening, and believing, Lionel said as he placed his hand on Lex's shoulder. Go to our island, finish your education, make connections. If you come across anyone promising to send them our way, I hope that these are things that we are working on that we never have to use. It's better to have it than not need it, Lex said. I will do what you ask. Keep me in the loop and get rest. I will, son, I will, Lionel said. Melissa marveled. All Might was still in recovery. After dozens of surgeries, he had hopefully completed his last one. It would be a few days before he could even try and see if he could still be a hero. He could still feel one for all coursing through his body, but it was different and weaker, as the damage he had sustained had damaged his body so severely that he may not be able to wield the quirk as he once did. He had talked to David and even his niece Melissa. The lies had flown as there were reports that All Might was missing. A carefully crafted press release had quieted those fears across the nation. Questions had been circulating about who the villain he had battled with, along with the blur of a hero that aided him in securing victory. All Might had used his considerable influence and power to keep young Kayama's name out of the press, citing that a civilian came to his aid, and they wished to remain that way. This boy was extraordinary, his powers and abilities were growing, and he was stronger every time they clashed. He had battled All for One, and he was sure that the villain had attempted to steal Izuku's quirk and failed. That never happened. The only time it happened was with One for All, and that was because of the quirk's nature. All Might sat back and stared at the ceiling. If he couldn't still be a hero, he would need to find a successor. Thankfully, this one would not be burdened by the specter of All for One. His successor would be able to live their lives in relative peace. He thought I should find a successor even if I could still be a hero. Young Kayama seems ideal, but there are questions I need answered. Melissa maybe? I don't think David would do well with that. There is young Ashido, who puts herself between her friends and One for All, a very brave and also very dangerous. The following symbol of peace with a physical mutation could go a long way to closing that gap. He had his eyes closed as the thoughts of the future consumed him. He felt a sudden rush of wind and immediately, he knew someone was in his room. He bolted upright, grimacing in pain. He heard a gasp and whispered words spoken in worry and horror. Uncle Might. Melissa? He stammered out. He clicked on the lights, and at the foot of his bed was his niece, Melissa Shield. But it wasn't her at the same time. She was donning a white top with a thick gold lightning bolt on the front, which perfectly fit around her more developed figure. A white cape with the same metallic gold trim hung off one shoulder, falling just below her knees. Her eyes were drawn towards the white skirt and gold boots. She was taller, he could see muscles she didn't have before. "Melissa, what happened to you?" "No, my God." Melissa's hands went to her mouth. "Uncle Mite, are you?" "Oh my God." He could see the tears welling and beginning to fall. He would have assumed some villain, but why would they go through all this trouble of impersonating his adopted niece? Her voice stripped that thought from his mind. Slowly, she walked to the side of the bed, and hesitantly, she reached out and touched his arm. He did his best to smile for her, opening his arms for a hug. He could feel her trepidation as she hugged him. He broke a sob as she began to cry on his shoulder. "It will be okay, little Melissa," he repeated as he soothed her. Finally, she calmed down and stepped back. She pulled a chair over and sat at his bedside, holding his hand. "How did this happen?" she whispered. "I did battle with an ancient enemy," he said. "My greatest enemy, and though it nearly cost me my life, I was able to win. But Melissa, please explain this to me. How did this happen? Why are you here? How is it that you look the way you do?" "I knew you were lying and hiding something when we talked," Melissa said. "I tracked your phone and flew here to check on you. I saw you lying in this bed through the window, and before I knew it, I was in the room. And this transformation? What outfit are you wearing? These powers you are demonstrating?" He squeezed her hand. "Okay. Having to say this out loud will sound crazy, but I swear I am not crazy, Uncle Mite." Melissa closed her eyes and took a deep breath. "I met a wizard, and they gave me these powers to help save the world from possible demonic and experiential threats that will one day threaten the planet." She opened one eye to peek at him, wincing. "You are correct. That does sound crazy," he responded. He could see her shoulders slump. "But you would never lie to me, so tell me everything?" Melissa smiled at his words, and slowly, she began to recant the story of how she had been transported to the cave where the wizard sat, the place she called the Rock of Eternity. The vision she had been shown was that the wizard was dying and desperately searching for a successor, someone to take up the mantle and help protect the world. "I saw someone standing over you, Uncle Mite. I wanted to come see you right away. That is why I messaged you, but you said you were all right. And I kept feeling you were lying to me, but I knew you were when we talked. So I had to come see you." Melissa sighed. "I was going to come to you immediately, but then I saw the news report that you were hospitalized." "So you now have these abilities, and it isn't a quirk?" he said, trying to make sense of everything. "I am sorry for lying to you, little Melissa, but I didn't want to scare you. And I did not have many answers myself. I still don't." Melissa sighed and lowered her head to his hand. Then she muttered something quietly, and there was a flash of light and rumble from outside. Before him was the Melissa he had seen on the phone. "See, it is a magic transformation kind of thing. I have to speak a special word, and boom, lightning, and I transform." She smiled. "I did do the test, and I still show up as quirkless, pinky joint, no quirk factor, but now I can be a hero, Uncle Mite. I don't have to just sit on the sidelines and wait. I can be by your side." "Little Melissa, it is not my place to say what you can and cannot do, but I will say that if you plan on becoming a hero, then you need to tell your father about this, and I would like you to enroll at UA so you can learn from the best." He took her hand. He couldn't help but smile as her face brightened. "I will do my best to train and guide you, and after I get out of here, you can come and show me what you can do." "I will, I promise, Uncle Mite." She wiped a stray tear. "I promise to talk to my dad." She kissed his forehead. "But no more lying. I told you the truth. I want you to do the same with me," she said. "I know you are holding something back, but I have faith that you will tell me when it is right." She smiled, got to her feet, and ran towards the window with a devilish smirk. He saw her leap out and sat up to rush to her, but he froze. He heard her say something. Then, a great lightning bolt came out of the sky and struck her. She was powered up in a flash. "Love you, Uncle Mite." "I love you too, little Melissa," he said as she zoomed off. Izuku out the window. "I wonder if it will rain soon?" "Not everything goes to plan, but," Izuku stuttered, "I don't want to move." "I understand, Izuku, but I have decided to take the teaching position at UA, his mother said, her hand on his knee. "I won't be home enough to allow you to stay here alone. Your uncles already teach there, and I feel this is the right move for us." But Mina, my friends, Izuku lamented. Mom, this isn't fair. I don't want to leave Mina. Izuku, you are not breaking up. You are just moving to a different city, Nomori said. It isn't like you won't be able to come see her, or she can come see you. It isn't the same, and you know that, Izuku said, sitting back and staring at the ceiling. Mom, why are you doing this? Everything was going so well. Now I have to start over. It won't be starting over, Nomori countered. I looked into it, and I can enroll you in the same school as Akane. Great, I get to go to school with someone I just met. Izuku rolled his eyes. Hey, can I follow you around like a lost puppy? This is bullshit? Izuku Kayama, Nomori said. What? You say all the time? I hear you and my uncles say much worse at night, he protested. And I am sorry, but this isn't fair. Why'd I have to give up my life because you want to be a teacher at UA? Because this isn't some anime where I am going to leave my teenage son alone in some city while I go somewhere for work. Nomori said, feeling irritated. She wasn't used to this level of defiance or pushback from Izuku. She took a deep breath. Izuku, I know that this won't be easy, and I know that you will miss Mina, but this won't be for forever. She will apply to UA as well. What would you do if she didn't get in? Are you not going to go to UA and go wherever she does? Do you think she would like that you were giving up on UA for her? She would appreciate the gesture, but she would want me to go to UA, he said after a pause. I have no problem with you flying up to see her. We can even get you licensed to do so, Nomori said. She loved her son and knew how much he cared for Mina and vice versa. But this would allow them to grow some without the other right there next to them. Promise? He said finally. Do I ever lie to you? Nomori said, hugging him. You used to tell me that if I ate my spinach, I would get super strength, he countered, snuggling into the hug. Well, you did, didn't you? Nomori laughed. That had nothing to do with the spinach, and you know that, Izuku countered. I have to tell Mina. Go ahead, but be home by curfew, Nomori said as he was gone, blown away by a gust of wind. Of course, Mina cried, which upset him. Her parents let the two teens wallow in their angst about the cruelties of life. They both promised they would stay together and talk every day. Mina brightened up when he told her about being able to fly up and see her whenever he wanted. Ultimately, her parents were surprised when Mina told Izuku that it wouldn't be that bad and that it was just a few miles away. A long train ride for her or a short flight for him, but she did promise that she would get into UA with him no matter what. You would think they were moving to different countries, Max whispered to his wife. Oh, you be quiet, Kara said. I remember someone freaking out when I changed my major, and we wouldn't be in the same classes anymore. That was different. He protested. How was that different? We still went to the same school, she raised an eyebrow. Because it was, he mumbled. Let them be, I think it's sweet, she said, grabbing and leading him to the kitchen. The interrogation. Hey, Akane, you have a second? Cammy called out. Sure, Cammy, what's up? Akane slowed her pace on the way to her locker. I want to ask about your date the other day? Cammy smirked. I don't know what you were talking about. Akane deflected, resuming her pace. You don't hum, Cammy said as she put her phone in front of Akane to see the photo of her and Izuku eating lunch. We saw you. You were laughing, playing with your hair. So who is he? Akane grabbed Cammy's hand and yanked her into the bathroom. Okay, it wasn't a date. His mom is a pro hero, and my mom met him at the hospital. They set it up like we were 5. Your mother set you up on a playdate? Cammy said in shock. Yes, exactly, Akane said quickly. I didn't want to do it, but then she told me he was a kid of a pro. And you couldn't resist because of that? Cammy said, nodding her head. Who is the pro? I can't tell you, sorry, Akane said. He asked me to keep to myself. So, I didn't know if it would be weird or creepy, but he is a nice guy. He has a girlfriend for whom he is head over heels, so it was cool. He wants to be a hero, so we just talked about stuff. Then we got attacked, and he got messed up. He is fine now. I have been messaging him and this girl with us at the attack, and we met this other one while in line for some space store. Why were you in line for a space store? Cammy wondered, and he went down to those freaks. His girlfriend is super into aliens and stuff. It was a grand opening, and he wanted to get her something and some swag, so he stood in line, Akane said, looking around to make sure someone wasn't listening. And one got him across the back with those claws. I think they were poisoned because he started to run a fever and passed out. That makes sense then. I'm glad that he is okay, at least. But are you saying you didn't think he was cute? Cammy said, looking at the picture. Okay, I am not blind. He is cute, but he has a girlfriend, and he is cool. He wants to be a hero, of course, and it isn't all about beating people up, and not everything is a freaking competition, Akane said. Besides, we're just texting a bit, and it is unlikely that I will see him again. So what you are saying is that you are into him. Cammy's smile came out in full force. See, this is why I didn't want to tell you. Akane threw up her hands and went to walk away. Sorry, aka, I was just teasing you, Cammy said. Well, I am glad that you made some friends. Thank you. Besides, one of the girls I met already knows Dahlia, Akane said as they exited. Oh, who was that? She said her name was Reiko, Akane replied. Hey, I thought you had a thing for Bakugo, Cammy said as Akane made a gagging noise. No, hell no. Akane rolled her eyes. I don't want everything to be a competition, and we don't see eye to eye on stuff. He is cool to hang out with, and he is my friend, but that is it. Cool, Cammy said. Do you like him? I think he's pretty cute. I didn't want to step on my girl's toes, that is all, Cammy said, blushing just ever so slightly. All yours, girl, all yours, Akane said with a smile. The truth: after 2 months, All Might was finally released from the hospital. Thankfully, he could still call upon One for All, but maintaining his battle form was not what it once was. He was forced out of his buff form against his will. He couldn't just turn it on and off at will. His time as a hero was not limited. After what Chio had told him, she expected his time limit to get shorter. If he pushed himself or went too hard, it would only hasten the decline. He stopped in front of the door to Nezu's office. He needed to get some answers regarding Izuku Kayama. After a brief delay, he entered and took a seat. Had Chio told you what is going on? No, my friend, Nezu said, setting 2 cups of tea on the table as he sat in the chair next to All Might. She sent the report, but I destroyed it. I figured if you wanted to tell me, then you would. I appreciate that, Nezu, All Might sighed. I fear that my time as the symbol of peace is now not only numbered but limited. The more I use it, the worse it will get before there will be no other choice but for me to step aside. Who knows? Nezu said sympathetically. Chio, you, All Might said. I plan on telling the others, including Night Eye. I understand. Do you plan on passing on One for All? Nezu inquired. I do. I hadn't given it much thought before, at least not seriously, but now I feel that I have to, All Might said, sipping his tea and smiling. They will be the first not to live with the specter of All for One. They can live a full and safe life. Do you have any candidates? Nezu said. All Might shook his head. No, I just barely began to consider it. I wanted to talk with you about that, All Might said. Me? Nezu said, confused. I wouldn't presume to tell you whom to pass it to, it would be your choice. It is my choice, but I want to talk to you about Izuku Kayama, your grandson, Nezu nodded. The boy is talented, and his quirk is strong. Adding All for One would push him beyond, I think, anything that has ever been seen. All Might noticed a slight twitch for just a second by Nezu. But there is something that is bothering me. And what is that? Nezu said calmly. I saw All for One touch him and try to take his quirk, which failed. I have sparred a few times with young Kayama and know how formidable he is at such a young age. It is uncanny, especially the growth between the first and second time we fought. He also was able to not only catch All for One off guard, but he was able to land a blow. All Might pause. Now I have never seen All for One not be able to take someone's quirk, except One for All, as it must be given freely. Also, I have never seen one with a quirk like his. He displays multiple quirks. It all stems from, Nezu began to say. I have fought many villains, and I am fairly familiar with how quirks work. All Might cut him off. Except for All for One's henchmen who have shown an adverse effect to housing multiple quirks, and a rare breed of people who have 2 quirks. I have not seen 1 or even 2 quirks that could account for all of his abilities. Nezu stood quiet. Super strength, invulnerability, flight, heightened senses, X-ray vision, heat vision. Super strength could carry a measure of invulnerability. Heightened senses could maybe explain the X-ray vision. That leaves flight and heat vision, so 4 possible quirks. All Might set his tea down. Now I know in my heart that this boy has no connection to All for one. And I know that he is a good kid with a strong sense of right and wrong, but I believe I am owed an explanation. Nezu paused. All Might, for the first time, saw his friend at a loss for words as he seemed to be struggling with his answer. Please excuse me for a minute. I need to make a phone call, Nezu said as he left the room. All Might waited for about 20 minutes before Nezu came walking back in. Who did you need to call? He asked. I had to talk with the boy's mother, Nezu said. I want to preference what I am about to tell you. With as much trust you have put in me to keep your secret, she and I are asking for that same level of trust. Just as if the truth about your quirk came to light, it would shake the world as we know it. If the truth about my grandson came to life, I could do more than shake the world. I could very well rock it to its core. The safety of those he cares about would be at great risk. Do you not mean his safety? All Might said. No, I fear for his mother, girlfriend, and all those who care about him, Nezu said. I would then fear for those who drove him over the edge because I am not sure that anyone could stop him. Are you saying he is dangerous? All Might said, his tone is taking a slight edge. No, he is everything you believe he is, Nezu said. But that is predicated on his love for his family and those he holds dear. If they were to be attacked or harmed because of what I am about to share with you, then I believe that in his anger, his rage, and his sorrow, he can be broken. And like all people, when broken, they can be dangerous, but with his abilities, that is even more so. My grandson does not possess a quirk, Nezu said. All Might's immediate reaction was to tell Nezu he was lying, but then he thought of Melissa. His abilities result from his unique DNA, which absorbs solar radiation, empowering him with all the abilities you listed. So his quirk is solar radiation absorption? All Might said, confused. Is it some type of mutation quirk? It is a mutation but not in the traditional sense that we have come to think of it, Nezu paused. This solar absorption is not unique to just Izuku but to his entire race. His race? All Might's eyes widened. Are you saying? Yes, All Might. Izuku is not human, nor did he originate from this planet, Nezu said. Izuku is living proof that we are not alone in the galaxy. It is terrifying, wonderful, and unsettling. How many others are there? All Might asked. Are there more of him here on Earth? Are more of them coming? What is their purpose? None that we know of, and we don't know for sure, Nezu said. Izuku is the last son of the planet Krypton. Akane sat in class. It was just another morning. She idly tapped her pencil, not overthinking about the empty seat next to her as the class finished filling up. Kami was going on about some idol group that she had seen their debut last night and how they were the absolute best, most talented one ever to take the stage. This was nothing new. Another group would emerge in about a month or two, and she would move on to them. It wasn't too big, but Akane had to admit the tall one, Kei, was darn cute. Ever since the playdate incident, she has been having a problem dealing with Bakugo and his attitude. The two have gotten into a few arguments, with her just throwing up her hands and walking away. After seeing how it was possible to agree with someone on how heroics should be approached, even if you disagreed, it could be a conversation. Not everything was a competition. When she beat Izuku at a video game, all he did was laugh and not demand a rematch till he won. It reminded her that she needed to text him after school and see how he was doing. He had sent her a message about having to move and wanted to talk to her, but she had been busy with some other stuff and hadn't had a chance to speak with him. Now listen here, I know we are a month away from summer break, but we have a new transfer student joining us, so please be kind and show him around, their homeroom teacher, Ms. Tanaka, said. You may enter now, Mr. Kayama. Akane froze. Her heart dropped, and she could hear Kami giggling. The door opened, and he stepped. He glanced at her but kept it quick. Please introduce yourself. Hello, my name is Izuku Kayama. I will be in your care, he said. Akane wondered if she was dreaming. She looked down. Nope, she was wearing clothes. She saw the other girls in the class looking him over. Dahlia was smacking Kami on the shoulder and whispering something. Very good, Mr. Kayama. Take the empty seat next to Ms. Midoriya so we can begin, she said. He took his seat as the class looked at him. Once they turned away, Akane turned to him. Why didn't you say something? She whispered. I tried, I messaged you like 3 times, sent an email, my mom told your mom, he said back. I thought you were mad, so I didn't want to bother you. We don't have to hang out or anything. His tone sounded hurt, and that made Akane feel like shit. No, it's fine. I was just caught off guard, she said. Her typical day suddenly wasn't very normal anymore. Mina, her head was on the desk as she let out a long sigh. His desk was empty. Nomori had decided to move before summer break to get used to the new location and take care of her orientation and training for the UA. She had told him it would be good for them and that it wouldn't be that bad, but in truth, she was heartbroken. Her boyfriend, her alien, was gone. What if he met another cute, beautiful, alien-loving girl who studied harder or didn't forget to do her chores, and that hussy stole him away from her? She needed to go and make sure he was safe. She suddenly bolted out of her seat. Is something wrong, Ashido? Her chemistry teacher said. All the class was looking at her. No, sorry, she bowed quickly and sat back down to some Snickers. Izuku, when the bell rang, people came over to talk to him. Akane left the room, followed by 2 other girls. Hello, Kayama. A nice-looking girl with black hair and glasses said first. I am Yoko Mori, the class president. This is my vice president, Haruko Aoki. Welcome to our class. Thank you. It is very nice to meet you, he responded, returning her bow from his seat. It must be difficult to transfer schools, especially at the end of the year, Yoko said. If you need anything, we will be more than happy to help. That is very kind of you, Izuku said. You are very welcome, Yoko said. If you like, you can sit with us for lunch in the cafeteria so you don't have to sit alone. Again, thank you. I will consider that, Izuku said. Yoko walked away, and Haruko leaned over. Just be careful of the Azukai. They're the school thugs who like to pick on new students. None are in this class, but they are easy to pick out. Thank you, Haruko. I will watch, he said. After that, a few of the guys that came over and introduced themselves, Ren, Yuta, and Benjiro, came over to introduce themselves. Ren, the representative of the soccer team, Yuta the swim team, and Benjiro, by far the largest, most sturdy-looking of the group, the wrestling team. It made Izuku smile as they introduced themselves quickly and told him he could watch practice anytime. Akane returned right before the bell, so they didn't have a chance to talk. When lunch, he politely declined Yoko and Haruko's invite to lunch and pulled out his bento box, saying he would sit at his desk today, but promised to join them tomorrow. Akane was also pulling out her bento, and her friends came to the site with her. Izuku, not wanting to intrude, just pulled out his phone. Hey, new guy, he turned to see the tawny-haired girl smirking at him. Akane was blushing. Why don't you join us? I mean, after all, you already know Akane. It is okay, Izuku said. I don't want to be an inconvenience. No, it's fine, Akane said. Sit with us, Izuku. I wasn't expecting to see you walk into class, and it is my fault for not getting back to you when you tried to tell me. This is Kamen and Dahlia. They're friends of mine. And they also saw us eating lunch at the mall. Only if you are sure, Izuku said, taking a seat. It is nice to meet you both, he said as he sat down. The door opened. Yo, who is this loser? A loud voice said. Izuku looked over his shoulder to the door and saw who he assumed was Katsuki Bakugo. According to Akane's description, 2 other boys were with him, and a nervous-looking girl was there. At least she and the boy with the wings were smiling. The other hat was so low he couldn't tell. Izuku Kayama, Izuku said, turning to the group, I just transferred here this morning, and they were nice enough to invite me to sit with them for lunch. I hope that won't be a problem? Bakugo, Katsuki said, eyeing the new competition. He also noticed that Akane seemed flushed, but he dismissed it. Tsubasa, wings, HIFU, hat, and Nini. Let me clarify. I am the top in the class and the next #1 hero. What kind of quirk you got? Really? Akane said. It is his first day. How about you relax, eat lunch, and quit being aggressive? Or you can go eat somewhere else. Izuku watched Katsuki glare at him like he was trying to look through him or establish dominance, and he had to do his best not to smile. Katsuki clicked his tongue and took a seat. Izuku looked at Akane, raising his eyebrow, and she just rolled her eyes. So Izuku, why did you have to move so close to the end of the year? Kami said. My mom started a new job, so we had to move. She can be a bit protective, so she didn't want to leave me home until the school year ended, Izuku replied. Oh yeah, what does she do? Kami pressed. Analytics, Izuku responded. Sticking to the cover story. Data crunching. Cool, Kami smirked. So what is your quirk? Katsuki said again. It is a physical enhancement. My body absorbs solar radiation and makes me stronger, tougher, and have great senses, Izuku said. Akane eyebrow raised at the solar radiation part. You going try for UA like the rest of us? Dahlia said. Definitely, he said, smiling. Always been my dream. He saw some of the group smile, and Katsuki rolled his eyes. Don't get in my way, he said, returning to eating his curry. Before lunch ended, he went to wash out his bento box, and Akane went with him. So that was Bakugo? He said. Yeah, Akane sighed. You see what I mean, it is so exhausting. Why did you move? My mom took a teaching job at UA, he whispered. Shut the front door, Akane said, her eyes wide. Izuku smiled. We live on campus. Okay, so what do I have to do to get an invite? Akane said, looking at him pleadingly. To be on the campus of UA is a dream. I don't know, he said sheepishly. I don't know the visitor policy, but I will find out for you. Ms. Mavel versus the boy of tomorrow after school. He said goodbye to Akane and her friends before he made his way off campus. He did meet a few more members of different groups and activities on his way out, inviting him to attend a meeting or whatnot. He made his way to the side entrance of the UA and presented his ID for the checkpoint before making his way to their home. It was a two-story nestled with the homes of the other faculty members who lived on campus, including his uncles. That made him happy. Unpacking was easy for him and the rest of the house, as he could do it at super speed. His mother's room was still a work in progress, as she insisted, and he was thankful that she would hang up all her clothes. All he had to do was move the furniture in boxes. He got changed and went to testing ground Omega as he had been told. When he walked in, he saw Nezu, All Might, his mother, and uncles all standing there. His eyes widened when he saw All Might. All Might. He called out as he blurred to appear next to the hero. Are you okay? I haven't seen you since. First, my dear Izuku, I want to thank you for your assistance that day, but I do not know if I would be standing here today if it wasn't for you getting me to the hospital so quickly. I thank you, All Might said as he bowed to Izuku. You don't have to bow to me, Izuku said quickly, waving his hands. I was just doing the best I could. Your best was astounding, All Might said. It raised several questions that I needed to address with your grandfather. He filled me in on your truth with your mother's permission. Izuku's eyes went wide. He looked past All Might to his calm and smiling family, which put him at ease. While the news was difficult to accept, it was a matter I couldn't let lie, and I understand why they kept this secret. I promise you I will do the same. Thank you, All Might, Izuku said. I would like to ask you a favor. All Might smiled as Izuku said anything. Something strange has befallen someone very dear to me, and as I am still recovering, I was wondering if you would be willing to spare time with them so they may test the extent of their powers. Sure, he said, slightly confused. A door opened, and in walked his grandmother with a very pretty blonde girl with aqua eyes. Melissa Shield, this is Izuku Kayama, All Might said. He is going to spar with you today. Are you sure about this, Uncle Might? She said. Izuku raised an eyebrow quizzically. You must be David Shields' daughter, Izuku said, putting the pieces together. I am, Melissa said, smiling. I am very sure, All Might laughed. Those tests that you didn't score the best on, this young man is the one that beat you. Well then, Melissa said, smiling. We should move to the monitor room, Nezu said, leading the adults away. Don't take this personally, she said, taking a few steps back. I won't, Izuku smiled. I hope All Might doesn't hold it against me when I win. Shazam! Melissa called out. Lightning appeared from nowhere, striking her. She had changed. Okay. I don't know what that was, but it was fucking awesome, Izuku said, looking at her. Magic, she said with a wink. Suddenly, to the rest of the observers sans All Might, she blurred and went to hit Izuku with a straight right. Melissa hit nothing but air. She was shocked as he slipped past her punch, spun, and kicked her in the back, sending her flying through a building. He noticed her punch was sloppy. Oh shit! He cried out. He went to move to check on her, but he was caught off guard when she came flying out of the hole in the building. He slid underneath her attack and whirled around, seeing her float above him. You dodged? Twice? She said. She came diving at him again. He jumped over her, grabbed her by the cape, and slammed her over his head into the ground. She tried to kick him in the head, and he could block, but it did send him sliding back. She is incredibly strong, fast, invulnerable, and can fly. I would think she would be like me if there hadn't been a lightning transformation. I am sure Brainiac would have told me about that. He thought. But she is clumsy and untrained. All Might could not have trained her, unless she somehow received her powers. Melissa charged him again. He could see the attack coming. Instead of dodging, he caught her fist, and the wind from their collision rushed through the training area. What the hell? Melissa said. You're strong but untrained, Izuku said. He released her hand as she tried a left cross. He leaned back, letting it pass, and pushed her elbow to knock her off balance. A knee to the gut lifted her off the ground, and a punch to the back of the head sent her moving back down. He grabbed the collar of her costume and threw her away from him through another building. Melissa came back at him like a missile. Izuku dodged when she turned to come back, and he flew up and speared her in the gut before delivering a double axe handle, sending her back into the ground below. He landed close to her as she re-engaged. He felt terrible when he blocked her punches and countered with right and left to the jaw, an uppercut that lifted her off the ground, and a spin kick that sent her rocketing away. Melissa stumbled to her feet. Fuck, that hurt, she thought. We are equally strong. He is better trained, faster, and can fly. She went back and again she beat her away. This happened multiple times till she stumbled to her feet, her mouth bleeding, a black eye, her costume damaged. She had bruises all over her body. He had a bruise on his cheek. You're new to your powers, he said, walking towards her. How do you know that? She said, raising her fists. We are pretty evenly matched, but I have more combat training. I have been training with my uncles and mother ever since I was little, Izuku replied. Your attacks are clumsy. They would devastate nearly anyone else, but I can see and react to them. Melissa seemed annoyed, but he was right. One more time. Izuku nodded, raising her fists. Melissa was staring up at the ceiling of the training center, and as her consciousness came back to her, Izuku extended a hand to help her out of the crater. Her entire body seemed to protest, even the act of breathing. Thanks, she said. You're right. I just got these abilities not too long ago. How? He said as he slipped her arm around his shoulder, helping her walk to the exit. Melissa took a deep breath and explained what had happened and the strange circumstances that had led her here. She told Izuku about how she had always wanted to be a hero, but being quirkless, she had decided to try and focus on support, but the desire and the itch never left. It was scary and a dream come true when she got these unique abilities. Izuku nodded. My abilities came in late, he said. My body absorbed solar radiation and had to build up enough before I could do anything. I felt bad or broken. All I wanted to do was be a hero with my mom and uncles. I bet you felt the same every time you saw All Might. You're not calling me a liar or saying I am crazy for telling some wizard teleported me to cave, and I get my powers from saying a strange word, Melissa said, shocked. Why would you lie? Izuku said. If you were going into support, you were pretty smart, I am guessing. I would have gone with some lab accident, and it would be a better cover story. Melissa laughed. I guess you're right, but you are correct. Every time I saw All Might, I would wish and dream it was me. Now that I have my chance, would you be willing to help me train? I want to get better. I want to make him proud. They both looked up and saw All Might standing there. Behind him was his family. I know what that is like, he said. Of course. How is All Might? Really? Recovering, she lied. I am sure he will right as rain soon. If you just got your powers, how did you get a license to fly? Izuku said as they neared the adults. What now? Melissa said. Goodnight kisses. Izuku had just stepped out of the training area with his family when he received a call from Mina. This doesn't work for me, Mina said. I am miserable. I am, too, Izuku said, stepping away to talk. I miss you so much. I demand you sneak over to my house tonight so I can see you, Mina said. Mina, I don't have my flying license yet, Izuku tried to protest. Izuku, if you don't come over and kiss me, I might just die, Mina said dramatically. I can feel it coming. Mina faked a sniffle. Unless you don't miss me. You know I do, he said. I know you do. I am sorry, Mina said with a heavy sigh. Please? Izuku looked around. 10 o'clock, keep your window open, he whispered. I miss you so much and need to see you also. I love you, she whispered. I love you more, he replied, ending the conversation. Nomori sighed, hearing him sneaking out, but she knew where he was going, so she let him have this one. Young love was adorable. She looked over the framed photo of her and Adam on the desk. She reached out and stroked the glass longingly. I miss you, my love, she whispered to the night air. Izuku slowed and landed silently in Mina's room. She was in his arms faster than a speeding bullet, and their lips met just as fast. Mina had jumped and wrapped her legs around him, her arms around her neck as they greedily kissed. His hand slipping under her ample backside added to their passionate embrace. They had been apart for 3 days, and to them, it was months. Mina moaned at the gentle squeeze of her ass. They broke apart, and he began to kiss her neck as they tumbled back onto the bed. When he pulled away, it was her turn to do the same before they were back to kissing, hands grabbing at each other's hair. He pulled her shirt collar to the side and nibbled and sucked at her collarbone, leaving a hickey. He let Mina roll on top of him while she ran her hands over his toned abs and nibbled on his neck. He pulled her up so they could kiss again, desire and want to build between them. A fire they would dance around, but they were afraid to get too close. She finally pulled away breathlessly, her hands on his chest, their hips straddled together. She could feel his desire. She knew he could feel hers. She took his hands and ran them up her shirt towards her breasts, his eyes wide, letting her guide him. Mina, do you want some ice cream? They heard her mother yell. He listened to her footsteps hit the bottom step. They scrambled apart, kissed more than they should have, and he was gone in a gust of wind. Mina tried to compose herself, opening the door. Yeah, ice cream, cool. Her mother raised an eyebrow at her out-of-breath daughter. Dance practice? Yeah, that is it, Mina said. Conflict. Izuku was doing his best to get adjusted to his new class, keeping his promise to sit and eat with the class president. Of course, they were curious about his sudden move and inevitably questions about his quirk with ease, but he relayed the explanation. When they asked about the name, he felt a bit self-conscious as he told them Vitruvian. He blushed when the vice president said it fit, then went red as a rose and excused herself. The problem was with Akane's group, particularly Bakugo. He seemed to get more annoyed every time he saw Izuku talking with Akane, and even more so when Akane invited him to join them to work after school. He agreed and went with them, even though the voice in his head screamed that it was a bad idea. As they hit the gym, Katsuki racked his weight with a smirk. He did his set. It was an impressive amount of weight for someone without a strength-enhancing quirk. When he invited Izuku to do the same weight, Izuku tried to back out, but the others wanted to see him try as he was easily as muscled as Katsuki. My quirk is always on, Izuku said. It is a total physical enhancement. Whatever, just shut up and lift it, Katsuki growled. Izuku sighed, walked over, lifted one hand, and put it above his head. That was the beginning of the end. After that, it was a test of endurance, speeding everything that Izuku won easily, and he didn't even sweat. When he broke away from Katsuki and his obsession with competing, he was helping Akane and the others out, offering advice from all he had learned. His easygoing nature, charm, and warmth endeared him quickly to the group. He was in the middle of spotting Akane when he felt the death stare. I don't think I should have come, Izuku said. Yeah, I didn't even think this wouldn't do anything for you, Akane replied. You can bail if you want. I think I will, he said. Come over Saturday. I can even give you a dime store tour. No kidding, Akane said excitedly and a bit too loudly. I will text you, Izuku said quickly. I will head home. Thank you for inviting me, he told the group before heading to the locker room to get change. Quit staring and get back to your workouts, damn it, Katsuki growled, staring at the retreating form of Izuku. Hey, Katsuki, would you spot me? Kami asked. Have wings do it, he said, stomping to Akane. What is going on with you two? Katsuki said the group had not returned to working out. Instead, they were watching the two. Nothing, Akane said, sitting up and wiping the sweat from her brow. We're just going to hang out this weekend. Why the hell for? Katsuki demanded. Because he asked me to. Akane said quizzically. He is a nice guy, new to the area. What is wrong with me hanging out with him? Or is it because he did better than you on the stupid workout? He has a strength quirk. Relax. Shut up. Katsuki snapped. No, you shut up, Akane said, getting to her feet. You know what, Katsuki? I am done dealing with you. Not everything has to be a damn competition. Not everything has to be done your damn way. I am tired of having to deal with your shit. Damn it, Akane. Katsuki roared, getting the attention of more people. If you would just listen to me. No, Katsuki. I don't have to listen to you. None of us do. Akane fired back. She was so angry that some wisps of fire came off the corners of her mouth. I am sick of you arguing every little thing, making everything a stupid competition. I am done with you. She looked around at everyone staring at them. I hate you. Just stay away from me, she whispered before she ran off. Izuku had just come out of the locker room after getting changed, and Akane burst out of the girls' locker room, her gym bag over her shoulder, and she was crying. Akane, are you okay? He said worriedly. Just fine, she spat, wiping the tears. I just got to get out of here. Let's get out of here. She grabbed his hand as he allowed her to pull him to the door and out of the gym. She pulled him down the street before she stumbled into an alley. She was fuming. He saw her pacing back and forth. Tears that started to run down her face evaporated as the heat from her began to build. He could hear a torrent of words flowing from her. They were rich with anger, a deep anger that was permeating through her every word. It was centered on Katsuki Bakugo, her frustrations, needs, and desire for change. As she paced, the temperature increased. Izuku could tell that things were about to boil over. He looked around quickly, then sent a blast of super cold breath that snapped her out of her anger and instantly made her shiver. She turned to him, stunned. All he could do was smile. Sorry, it looked like you were about to blow your top, so it seemed like the safest way to get things under control. He rubbed the back of his head sheepishly. Are you okay? Akane whined for a moment, but then she felt incredibly embarrassed as she was about to lose control because she was so angry and emotional. It was a fact that she tried to keep hidden from just about everyone. She blamed her mom, a big crier, and her hot-tempered father. Not in a violent way, but very passionate, prone to flying off the handle before realizing that he was off base. He would correct it, but it was always a problem. It was a unique relationship when he was home, and her parents couldn't keep their hands off each other. In truth, she thought it was adorable. At one point, Akane was attracted to Katsuki. His fiery personality was the catalyst, childhood friends wanting to be heroes. She had been quite tomboyish when she was little, and she had scars on her knees and elbows to prove it. But while she still preferred jeans over skirts, she appreciated a lovely dress and feeling beautiful. When she was trying to catch his attention, she went to meet him at the movies. She wore a dress and makeup and even spent hours styling her curly hair, only to get, "Why are you wearing a dress?" After that, everything went downhill. He complained about wasting time at the movie. They could have been training. The cafe sucked. They should have just gotten the chicken bowl by the gym. She had studied hard for a test and beat him, and he exploded. Her team beat him in a relay race during sports day, and he exploded. She came close to anything better than him, and he exploded. At first, her desire to best him was a different way to catch his attention, but then she found she enjoyed the feeling of winning or seeing her hard work pay off. Everything was a fight, a battle, which she didn't want. Her father was hot-tempered, but he didn't fight with her mother over every little thing. He would most of the time acquiesce to her request. She often wondered why she still put up with all his bullshit. It had been driven home during her playdate with Izuku. They had talked about so much and had agreed on several things, but when they didn't agree, she expected a blow and got questions about why she felt that way, him attempting to understand her feelings on matters. His girlfriend was a lucky sob. She sat there looking at him in that alley, and all she saw was compassion and caring. If he were single, she would have fallen for him right then, but she was comforted by the fact that he was taken. He was exactly what she needed now. A friend. I am now, she said, a bit embarrassed. Thank you, Izuku, you are a good friend. His warm smile put her at ease. Anytime, Akane, he said. I don't want to overstep, but maybe you shouldn't work out with him anymore. It may be good physically, but it doesn't seem good mentally. Well, will you work out with me? She said hesitantly. Of course, we can figure something out, he smirked. There is a hero gym around here. I can see about getting us some passes so we can work out there. Her eyes lit up, shining like stars. Hero gym. She whispered. His laughter made her pout and punch his shoulder. She noticed he rocked with her punch instead of letting her make contact. She would have to file that away for later. Thankfully, the end of school was so close that Akane ignored Bakugo. When he came around, she would walk away, and Izuku just stood away from him. It made things awkward with the rest of her friends, but Dahlia and Kami were still friendly. Akane stopped working out with them. Instead, she was happy to work out with Izuku at the hero gym. She was sad that she couldn't ask for autographs, but just being in there was enough for her. Then she got to see what Izuku's exercises were, how absurdly strong and fast he was. She was over the moon with her dime store tour of the UA. Just being on the campus had her bouncing off the wall. She was surprised when she met his mother and sat with them at dinner. Of course, Mina was a bit sulky about the whole thing with him and Akane. It could be best described as jealousy. She had never had to share Izuku like this. Yes, other girls would be around him, but she was right there, and after they started dating, she was even more right there. But not being with him to work out, study, or go to school made the pink girl a little green. She was a bit snippy with him one night, but when he appeared at her window, she realized it wasn't that she didn't trust him or thought he would leave her. She was jealous of the time that Akane got to spend with him that she just wasn't able to. When summer comes, they will be able to remedy that. Summer or Mina's birthday. Despite Mina and Izuku's best efforts, they couldn't stay at each other's house all summer, but they could alternate some week-long stays, and with him getting his flying license, he was there in the morning till night when it was permissible. Of course, she demanded that he take her to the beach, and it had nothing to do with the brand new two-piece swimsuit she had bought, foregoing the usual one-piece she usually wore. How he looked at her and how bad he blushed, but the fact that he couldn't take his eyes off her made it perfect. Mina had never felt more beautiful. A group of stunning older girls had passed, and he hadn't even noticed them. Mina came to be with him for his birthday and met Akane in person, the two girls getting to know each other. Akane pulled her aside and promised her she had no designs on her boyfriend and that he was exactly what she needed because he was a friend. The two talked for a long time, getting to know each other before exchanging numbers, and their friendship blossomed. Mina snuck into his bedroom that night. He began to protest, but it died in his mouth when she removed her shirt. She wasn't wearing a bra. They didn't go further than that, but it was a fantastic experience for both of them. Mina and Izuku were in love. When her birthday came around by the end of that day, Mina knew she would marry him one day. He had arrived early at her home, carrying a big box that she couldn't peek at. They spent the day going to her favorite shops and eating lunch at her favorite cafe. They had dinner with her parents, but she kept stealing glances at that huge crate. She pouted that even after the presents were exchanged, he still wouldn't let her open it. He instead had her open another box of white material, and she curiously pulled it out. As soon as her hands touched it, she recognized it. It was the same material as his blanket, a full bodysuit with a hood and everything. She noticed that it was a bit thicker than his blanket. The next present was blue gloves and boots. She looked at them and then at him, confused. "Go put them on," he said. "Meet me out back." Mina slowly went upstairs and did as she was asked. Her parents looked at him. "Are you positive that she will be safe?" Max asked him. "Mr. Ashido, I love your daughter so much," Izuku said. "I would never do anything to put her at risk or endanger her. We built the same one for my mom to test, and it worked perfectly." "What are your intentions for her?" he said, leaning forward. "I hope that we get to go to the UA together and graduate, and if, after all that, she will have me, with your blessing, I would love to marry her," Izuku said, very nervous. "No one could ever make me feel the way Mina does or love me as much as she does. You continue to treat her as you do, and if she wants that, then you have my blessing to ask her to marry you," Max said. "Now give my little girl the most amazing birthday gift of her life, son." "Thank you," Izuku bowed, grabbing another box that went to the backyard. Mina stood in front of the mirror. She had to admit it looked cute. It was form-fitting, and there was a strange metal ring around her neck. She walked back, and he was standing there, some peculiar backpack on the ground next to him. "Okay, Izu, what is this all?" She stopped when she noticed the backpack had a tube running to a helmet. She looked up at the night sky and then at him. "Are we?" Izuku nodded, giving her a light kiss as he helped her with the pack. Then, he secured the helmet and locked it in place. He pulled around her back and typed a few things in. She jumped when the helmet lit up, with information on her location, oxygen levels, etc. He put in an earpiece as he stood before her. He had never seen her so still or so quiet. When he asked if she could hear him, she could only nod. Like hundreds of times before, she stepped forward, putting her feet on his, and they rose. She felt so warm in the suit that they passed through the clouds, climbing higher and higher. Her heart was racing. She was excited and scared, but she knew she was safe when she looked into his eyes. When she looked back, she instinctively tightened her grip. Mina Ashido was in outer space. He turned her around so her back was to him. He wrapped his arms around her, and they just floated there. "What is it like?" she said. "What?" he responded. "Being able to do all these extraordinary things." She looked back at him. "You are in outer space without a helmet. You flew me to outer space. Izuku, am I enough for you? I can't do anything like this. I will never." "No one will, Mina," he said quietly. "I am the last of my people, and I am blessed that my birth parents sent me here, that my mom found me, and that the girl I fell in love with just so happened to love aliens. That girl who was there for me when my heightened senses kicked in, who was there when all these changes happened to me. When I freaked out, your voice called me home." Mina stared at him with tears in her eyes. "I love you, Mina Ashido. All I need from you is you. Your love, your laugh, your smile. Even if I was just a normal boy, if I had your love, I know I would be able to fly." They floated for a while longer. "Take me home, Izuku," she said finally. When they got home, they spent the night asleep in each other's arms, and then he left the next day to return home. Kara and Max watched as Mina seemed floating. She had this blissful daze as she flittered about the house. Max excused himself to go to the store while Kara wrangled her daughter. Mina, smiling and giggling at some little text he had sent, looked up at her mom. "Yes, Mom, he is the one." Kara smiled. "The one." Mina blushed. "Mom, I couldn't find someone better if I searched the world." "How far have you two gone?" Kara said. Her daughter turned a lovely shade of lilac. "Nothing too far, just Mina played with her hands and looked away. "Second base. Should we consider a visit to the doctor?" Kara pressed, and Mina nodded. "Okay, I will set one up." Kayama household. "Now, to maximize pleasure for your partner, it is important to focus on these erogenous zones," Nomori said. "Mom is this," Izuku protested, his face red. "Listen to Izuku Kayama. I will not have my son be a subpar lover," Nomori said. "But if that is what you want." "No," Izuku said, opening his notebook. "I am ready to learn." New school year. Lex was sad to leave Mina, happy that Izuku was gone, but he knew he had to put things into perspective. Despite his attraction for Mina and his dislike of Izuku, he couldn't find a reason to dislike him aside from just having things he didn't. It was an unnatural position for Lex as he normally had everything he ever wanted up until he met them. But he could see that Mina was in love with that idiot and that he had something that Lex didn't, probably dumb muscles or something superficial. That was at least what he told himself. He had been busy, so he couldn't give Mina as much time as he wanted. He had quieted the board with a few tidbits his father had agreed to release for his lab. He was getting prepared for his move to Island, taking his entrance exam. He was pleased that Mina took him and Daphne to a little cafe for a goodbye dinner, gave them both phone charms of her favorite aliens, and made them promise to text her and stay in touch. The part that confused him was Mina and Daphne talking for over 20 minutes while he was forced to sit in the car. He noticed that they would occasionally look towards him, but when he went to step out of the vehicle, Mina chased him back inside. It was easy to get situated on the island, and they already had a home there. When the first day of school came, he strolled to class confident and ready to begin this year. According to the information he had received, the class seating was by rank. When they entered, he immediately looked to the number 1 spot only to see a blonde-haired girl sitting there, her laptop open and typing away. Lex was about to say something, but there was no way that someone in this class was that dumb. He looked at the seating chart and ground his teeth. Melissa Shield Alexander Luthor Daphne took the 12th seat as he reluctantly walked over and sat in his seat. The girl looked over and smiled, extending her hand. "Melissa Shield, pleased to meet you," she said. "Alexander Luthor," he responded with a plastic smile. "Intelligence quirk?" "Nobody enhancement," Melissa said. "It took a while to activate. Apparently, my body had to stockpile the energy or something." "Well, it is nice to meet you," he lied. Internally, he seethed, no intelligence quirk, yet she ranked higher. That would not last. All Might Toshi had taken it upon himself to investigate young Kayama. He was interested in what type of person he was away from everyone. A good way to find out what he had experienced was to find out about a person's partner, what kind of person they were, and how they behaved. He was observing Mina, who was out with friends, when there was a bit of commotion as people ran from a side street. He watched as Mina ran over him, following a discreet distance away. There was a large man well over 12 feet tall with a warthog mutation. The man was large and intimidating, near a flower shop, and the attendant was cowering. The man was towering over a young man who was frozen stiff. The man was gesturing wildly, his voice loud, as he pointed at the boy and then to the shop attendant. Toshi watched as Mina ran up. It took her a few moments. The man pulled out a paper and pointed at her, clearly agitated. Mina took the paper and patiently had the man repeat himself a few times. Then she gave him directions, and the man bowed. She apologized to the shop attendant and the boy before walking out with Mina. I know it gets frustrating. People look at us differently because of our mutations, she said, pointing down the street. And with the huge tusks, it is hard to communicate. The man nodded. Just take your time. It will be all right. Go to the end of the block, turn left, then right at the second block. The man bowed and thanked the girl. I will be a famous hero one day, don't you worry, so mutants all over will have someone to be a symbol for them. Once the man was gone, her friends approached her, asking if she was scared. Of course, Mina said, her hand over her heat. At first, but then I realized he was just frustrated. He had a hard time talking and needed to find an address, but he got lost. Mina smiled and walked away with her friends. She was calm, even scared, so she stepped up, just like when All for One came at her. A symbol for mutants, something to give them hope. I think I should get to know you better, Mina Ashido, he said. Brave, good heart and willingness to step up are all qualities that a successor should have. Her personality was spot on, and her smile and nature made her popular. And if young Kayama did go out of control, she may be the only one to pull him back. He imagined the thought of Mina as his successor, Melissa, and Izuku with her, 3 pillars ready to protect the world. What had begun as an investigation into young Kayama had brought him back again and again to Mina Ashido. The more he thought about it, the more it felt right. He needed to sit down, talk with her, and hear from the girl directly. What is in the box? Mina still could not open the large crate at her home after she had returned from outer space. Izuku told her that she would have to wait just a bit for the last part as he had encountered a hiccup. Then the worst thing imaginable happened. He was out of contact for a whole week because of some dumb thing he had to do with Brainiac. Mina was not happy. It was almost the end of summer break, and they wouldn't be able to see each other as much. It had been a long day. She had gone out with friends, and there had been an incident with a fellow mutant with a boar quirk that had almost devolved into something terrible, but it was just a misunderstanding, and thankfully, everything had worked out fine. She was about to walk to her house when she saw the crate pieces sitting by the trash enclosure. Her eyes widened, and she burst into the house. Her mother and father were home. Her mother cooked up katsudon, and her father drank tea at the counter. Mina looked to the living room, but the crate was gone. Nothing else was there. Max just smirked and pointed upstairs. Mina took off, taking them 2 at a time, and she burst into her room. Faster than a speeding bullet, she was in his arms. After she kissed him senselessly, she realized there was this white glow in her room. She turned, and there was a metal box with a glass display case on top of it. And there was a white and gray rock sitting in the case inside another tube. Mina had seen this before. She had seen it with him when they toured the Space Museum on a field trip. It was a moon rock. Did you go to the moon and get me my moon rock? Mina whispered. He didn't answer. Instead, she felt something cold lightly touch her chest and neck. She looked down and saw this beautifully polished diamond with a white glow at the center. It sat in a gorgeous gold setting, and with a nice rope chain, he fastened it around her neck. She looked down and slowly lifted the diamond to look at it closely. Oh, Izuku, she whispered. I can't. This must have been so expensive. The chain was my father's, used some gold from some pieces that were no longer used to make the setting, and the diamond. Well, I made the diamond, he said quietly. Izuku, she said, turning to him, tears in her eyes. How did you make a diamond? Well, diamonds are carbon put under pressure and heat. So while selecting your rock, I found a nice chunk that would work and, he said. Mina, I love you. I love you so much, and one day, I can't wait to stand in front of the world and tell them how much I love you. But until then, I wanted you to wear this so that even when I am not here with you, you can see this as a symbol of my love, and know that I am thinking of you. Mina looked at the diamond, her moon rock, and her boyfriend and kissed him as the tears of happiness gently fell. I love you so much, Izuku. She just continued to kiss him till the call for dinner came. He spent the rest of the week with her until the new school year began. She snuck into his room every night and cuddled against him. Well, maybe not just cuddle. A new school year. Akane was happy and annoyed in 15 seconds. She walked to the board to see her new class assignment. The happy Kami and Dahlia were there to greet her and tell her they were all in the same class again. Nini, Tsubasa, and Hifu were joining them and Katsuki Bakugo. Yeah, Akane said sarcastically, waving her hands. She paused and looked around but didn't see Izuku anywhere. She tried to get a peek at the listing, but Kami and Dahlia were already drawing her off. What did you do over the summer? Dahlia asked. Akane laughed and rolled her eyes. Why are you making it seem like we didn't see each other this summer? We even all went to the beach together. Akane glared at Kami. Though some asshole didn't tell me that Katsuki was going to be there. Kami put her hands up defensively. He wasn't till the last minute, Kami said. I was as surprised as you were. He said it was dumb at first, but the night before, he said he was coming. You making any progress? Akane said. Kami rolled her eyes. I got him to go the movies, but I had to do a double workout for it. Kami let out a heavy sigh. That dude is just all about getting into UA. He did ask about you a couple of times. Wanted to know how you were doing. Akane's eyebrow arched, and Kami began to wilt. Fine, he wanted to know if you were done being a crybaby and hanging with that loser. Yay, see fuck him, Akane said. I am done with him. You know this was the best summer I have had in years. I hung out with you guys. I hung out with Izuku, and met his girlfriend, Mina. You would love her, Kami. I think the world might explode if you ever got together. I worked out and had fun. It was great. There is none of that obsessive. I have to be the best. Bullshit when I work out with Izuku. You trying to poach him from his girl? Dahlia teased. No, if he were single, it would be a different story, but Mina is great, and he loves her so much. Honestly, I need him as a friend. I am not looking for nor need a boyfriend. Akane stopped and flexed. Kami's eyes widened. See. I am in better shape than before summer and also had fun. Did you see the pic of Tsubasa and Nini? Kami gushed. Akane's face brightened up. I did. I am glad he finally figured it out. That boy was dense. On cue, the new couple was suddenly right before them, holding hands. Kami called out to them, and they fell in step with the group. When they entered the class, they saw Haifu, who nodded. Bakugo was seated directly in front of the teacher's podium. But the one person Akane wanted to see was sitting in the back corner by the window. Izuku smiled at her and waved. Bakugo glared at Akane, who looked at him once, then just looked away and walked past him. She looked at the seating chart and happily sat beside Izuku in the back. Kami sat up one and over with Dahlia beside her and Nini and Tsubasa in front of them. The first day was fine. Their homeroom teacher was Mrs. Tsukasa, who had a good reputation for being a bit strict, but she was fair. Of course, Akane declined to sit with them due to Bakugo's presence, instead choosing to sit with Izuku, who was talking with Yoko Mori, the previous year's class president, who smiled and thanked him before she left to eat with her friends. Recruitment again. Akane said as she sat down, pulling out her bento box. She smiled at the fact that he was twice her size, his rice had a big heart, and the hot dogs were cut like little octopuses. She saw the note open next to him, reading, "Have a great day today. Love, Mom." Akane giggled. Does your mom always write you notes? Not all the time, Izuku smiled. She did when I was little, but now and then. She is excited today, which is her first day as well. That is good, Akane said. Let's have a great year. To a great year, Izuku said. Mina was sure nothing she had done warranted a call to the principal's office. If she was being called for anything negative, she had been framed, and she was sure of that. The new school year was still incomplete without Izuku, but he had his license to fly, and they would see each other at least one day on the weekend. It was something at least. If she pouted, they would sneak out to come and give her kisses at her window. She loved it, even when her father caught them and started chasing him with a broom. Besides, it was just the second week of school, and she hadn't done anything yet. She had made a new friend, at least a boy named Eijiro Kirishima. He had red hair and pointed teeth. He was a little unsure of himself, and Mina noticed, but he seemed to be friendly and tried to do his best. He was trying to become someone else or change something about himself. It didn't seem like he was fake. It was more like he recognized something he didn't like about himself and wouldn't let it stand anymore. Mina walked in and saw the principal smiling while talking to a frail, skeletal-looking man dressed in a yellow pinstriped suit resembling a child wearing their father's clothes. The man had golden yellow hair that reminded her of All Might, and these piercing bright blue eyes seemed to float there. "Welcome, Ms. Ashido," the principal said with a smile. "Mr. Yagi, it was a pleasure to meet you. If you need anything, please let me know." Mina watched as the principal rose and left the room. Mina looked at the man for a moment before she smiled. "I didn't do it. No one saw me do it." "You can't prove anything," she said, taking a seat. "That is where you are wrong, Mr. Ashido. I saw you do it, and I must say that it was impressive," Mr. Yagi replied. "Okay, then I am confused." Mina sat back. "I happened to see you a few weeks back," Mr. Yagi began to say. "You de-escalated a situation with a man with a boar quirk who was getting frustrated about people not understanding him." "Oh, that," Mina said. "Would you tell me about that?" Yagi asked. "Not much to say besides what you described," Mina shrugged. "People don't mind a mutant when they have a cute mutation or if your animal quirk is cute. Other larger, dangerous, unattractive animals tend to look at you differently. My quirk is exotic, but I still look like a normal girl. My skin is pink, so I get a pass most of the time. But some people freak out about my eyes or horns. That doesn't mean people don't say mean things." "What happened with the man then?" Yagi asked. "He has large tusks, and his teeth are oversized for his mouth, so he has difficulty talking," Mina said. "He was getting frustrated that people weren't understanding him, and then they were getting scared of him, so everything escalated. Some heroes see a big man gesturing wildly, and a normal-looking girl is crying and cringing. They jump to conclusions." Mina looked a bit sad. It could have gone bad for a poor man just looking for directions. Mutants relate better to other mutants because we have all gone through something. We have all been picked on, discriminated against, and had terrible things said about us or those with us. "What would you do to change that?" Yagi said. "I want to become a high-ranking hero to help bring awareness and give other mutants someone to look up to, like Gang Orca or Mirko. Gang Orca is a great hero, but he has to work harder because of how he looks. Mirko is a freaking badass, but Bunny Girl in Japan." Mina shrugged. "The more mutants rise in the ranks, the more normal it will be. If I could somehow be the next All Might, that would be the dream." "You like All Might?" Yagi said. "Of course, he is freaking All Might. I was caught up in the fight in Sapporo." Mina shivered. "That was the scariest day of my life. Watching someone push All Might to the edge was just crazy, and when the man came after me." "Did you run?" Mina shook her head. "Why not? 2 of my friends were behind me," Mina said. "Lex has an intelligence quirk, and Daphne has regeneration. I didn't know what I could do, but if I could give them a chance to get away, I had to do it." Scared, All Might pressed. Terrified, but when something bad happens, some run away, and some run towards it. "If you want to be a hero or a symbol, you can't be the type that runs away," Mina said. "Many more mutant heroes are breaking into the higher ranks, and I just want to do my part to break down those walls." "Is there anything else that drives you to be a hero?" All Might asked. "It may sound silly," Mina blushed slightly and fidgeted, "but my boyfriend." "Your boyfriend?" All Might said with a smirk. "You see, he has an amazing quirk and is super strong, caring, and wonderful," Mina gushed. She put her hand on her chest, touching a necklace under her shirt. "Have you ever met someone that just changed your life?" All Might nodded, thinking of Nana. "He changed my life, made me think bigger and want more. I would have wanted to be a hero, but I don't think I would have thought about being a symbol for mutants if not for him. He makes me better." "May I ask a hypothetical question?" Mina nodded. "What if you learned he was hiding a secret from you?" "Hypothetically." Mina paused. "He would never hide anything from me as I would never hide anything from him. If he did, I would hurt because I believe he would trust me with anything, but I would listen to why he kept it from me and judge from there." "Would you ever keep a secret from him?" All Might said. "No, I don't think there is anything in this world I couldn't share with him," Mina said. "I know that I can share any burden with him and that he will share any burden with me. There are no secrets between us." All Might paused, thinking this girl had the right attitude. She had good, brave, and loyal ideas. "Young Ashido, I am the personal assistant to All Might. My intention in coming here today was to learn more about the type of person you are, and I am impressed by what I have discovered. You can be a great hero and have the drive and capability to make your dream of being more than a hero come true. I want to train you for UA. Oh my god, yes, thank you sir. It would be an honor, Mina exclaimed. When can we begin? We can begin today after school, All Might said. He pulled out a business card and wrote an address on the back. Meet me here today after school. Let me warn you, this training will be intense. While I can see that you are in good shape already, I will push you hard. It would be best to dedicate yourself to a strict regimen, and there may be little time to socialize with friends or your boyfriend. Are you willing to make that commitment? Mina paused. Her time with Izuku was precious, but the thought that she could receive training from All Might's assistant made her smile. Izuku got to train with All Might, and she would get to train with his assistant. Yes, Mina said, determination evident on her face. Mina wanted to die, and Mr. Yagi pushed her harder than she thought was possible. She trained and worked out every day, and she was exhausted. She had difficulty staying up to talk with Izuku, who spoke with All Might and confirmed that Mr. Yagi was his assistant. Their time together was spent letting Mina recover, which was their cuddle day. Alexander Luthor, the first test came back, of course, he scored 100, but then again, she did, and she was Melissa Shield. She was interesting. She didn't have an intelligence-boosting quirk. She had some body-enhancing quirk that had just kicked in late last term. He heard taunts from others in class or the hall that she was lying and just a quirkless girl. This girl was more annoying than Midoriya. At least he could score higher than him to cement his place as the #1 student. So far, it seemed he would wait for her to slip up so he could take his rightful place. If Midoriya had her intelligence and she had his charm, they would combine to be the most annoying single person to walk the damn planet. Somehow, this Melissa Shield had befriended Daphne in a matter of days. He would have two if he had a nickel for every time someone with a physical enhancement quirk was in his way from getting what he wanted. The fact that it happened twice back to back was infuriating. From what he overheard her telling Daphne, her quirk had to be activated and wasn't on all the time. But he had to respect her natural intelligence. She was brilliant. Unlike him or others who shared a similar quirk, their intelligence was more questioned. Even her detractors never would say she wasn't intelligent. Being the daughter of David Shield, a renowned inventor of support gear, had put her in a unique position to live, breathe, and absorb everything this course was focused on for all her life. But why did she and Izuku have to share that dumb smile? It wasn't very pleasant. Then there was Daphne. She had been acting strange ever since they arrived on the island. She was wearing makeup, had changed her hairstyle, and started wearing a lovely perfume that he immensely enjoyed. He didn't like her dragging him to the movies or the beach market, not that it wasn't pleasant. It was time he could have spent better, in his opinion. Business was in his blood, it was what he had to do. Inventing and creating was his passion, he enjoyed solving problems. Place a problem before him, and he loved finding the solution. Business satisfied that to a certain extent, but there is nothing like building something. He sat looking over the UA's rules, and nothing in them said he couldn't major in business and support. A certified support degree from the UA would be excellent to bring to Luthor Corp. His father was a businessman and a scientist. Why couldn't he? There was still that threat from beyond the stars. Who knows what they looked like or their abilities? Knowing a few physically impressive heroes may come in handy, he still could see that man from the attack during their field trip. The way he talked, he knew what their quirks were, and he implied he could take them. All Might had been pushed to his limit, and as much as it grated on him, Izuku was impressive that day. Yes, alien invasion was a scary prospect, but there were still those born on this planet who had to be dealt with. There were so many problems, and they just needed a solution. Maybe the sunshine is not so bad once again. She had been called into battle with her ancient enemies of sunshine and crowds, but this time, she was not waging war at the shopping mall. This field of battle was met with others, and an offhand comment about wanting to go Monster Con in her group chat was her undoing. She wanted to attend the convention, but the tickets were expensive. Curious questions from Akane and Izuku prompted her to gush about the convention and how Godzilla would appear this year. And many other monster-themed heroes, including Vampire King, the Reanimated, Dr. Funkenstein, Darkness, Eclipse, Belladonna, Horus, and Amon-Ra. Late-night movie screenings and special panel access. She didn't know how it happened. Izuku had somehow secured special ultra-exclusive VIP 2-day passes at such a discount, and her mind wondered if he had beaten someone up. Reiko had kept in touch with Akane and Izuku since the incident at the shopping mall. They were lovely. After what had happened, she thought they would move on, but when they messaged her, it brightened her day. Her best friend Setsuna was jealous, not about the convention but of the good times to be had, and demanded an autograph from Godzilla. One small problem, a tiny, insignificant problem. The convention was at a beach resort due to the presence of Godzilla, and she somehow agreed to spend time on the beach with the group. Due to her negligence, she had not bought a new bathing suit in years, as sunshine was the enemy. She had agreed to meet with Akane and Dahlia to shop for a new suit. Once more into the abyss, she had to dive. Then she would have to go to the beach. She just hoped that when the tale of her life was recited upon her passing, they would take note of the sacrifices she made. Reiko had fun. The beach started slow, but Akane and Mina, Izuku's girlfriend, wouldn't let her hide under the umbrella. It all began when they saw Mina launched from the water high into the air by Izuku. Then Akane got involved, Dahlia. It was their laughter and the joy on their faces. She went out into the water and over to the group. When she asked Izuku if he would do the same for her, the smile on his face was contagious. She blushed and sputtered when he grabbed her by the waist, but then he ducked under the waters, and his hands slipped under her feet. She shot out of the water like a rocket. Reiko could float, but not at the velocity that Izuku launched her. It was a thrill ride without the track. Her heart pounded as she rocketed. The feeling at the apex, that weightless feeling before she came back down, was perfect. When she broke the surface, she was smiling like an idiot. It just set the tone for the entire weekend. Dahlia was her sister in arms for the midnight screenings of the trivia games. Akane and Mina were there to stand in line and take silly photos, and Izuku was the presence that made everything feel safe. His laughter and smile were so infectious, and the fact that he won an arm wrestling contest against Vampire King to win Reiko and Dahlia's exclusive one-of-a-kind merchandise was the topping on the cake. He even danced with her at the closing concert by Darkness. She had never smiled so much. Maybe the sun wasn't so bad, mainly when contained in a smile. Missing Akane walked into class after the convention, still smiling from all the fun they had. Cammy was with Dahlia, sharing photos and videos with their friend. Akane noticed something was bothering Cammy, but her friend tried to get it back. Cammy kept glancing at Bakugo, who looked like his normally annoyed self. She sat next to Izuku, and they talked a bit before the bell rang, and everyone took their seats. She noticed that Tsubasa and Nini's seats were empty. Nini had gone with Tsubasa to help him with something to do with his grandfather over the weekend. She was excited about meeting Tsubasa's parents and grandfather. During the first break, she texted Nini, asking if she was okay. At lunch, she hadn't received a response. She heard Dahlia ask Haifu if he had heard from Tsubasa, but the boy said no. Dahlia even bothered to ask Katsuki, whose response was, no, and why would he care? Akane took the opportunity to go over to Cammy. Hey, what happened? I told Katsuki that I liked him this weekend, Cammy said. Akane's eyes widened. He said, yeah, okay. So, are we going to go work out now or what? Akane's heart broke a bit for her friend, so she hugged Cammy. Cammy did an excellent job of holding back her tears. It was so damn dismissive that it just hurt, Cammy said. I am sorry, Cammy, Akane said. Excuse me a moment. Part of Akane wanted to yell at Katsuki, but it wouldn't do any damn good. She walked over to Izuku. Hey, do you mind if I don't join you today to work out? She saw him look at Cammy. Of course, Akane, that is fine. She needs you more, he said, smiling. Akane just smiled. She thought this was how a friend was supposed to react. Akane returned and offered to go home and hang out with Cammy and Dahlia after school. Cammy smiled and thanked them. At the end of class, Katsuki Bakugo told Cammy it was time to work out. He then seemed confused and angry when she told him she wouldn't come to work out. Instead, she was going home. He looked at Haifu, who shrugged and followed him out. Nini and Tsubasa didn't come to school the next day. Or the day after that. Or the day after that. They didn't come to school all week, nor were they responding to phone calls or text messages. The girls were worried. Cammy would go by Nini's home after school that Friday and Hifu said he would check Tsubasa's place. Cammy. No one is home. The house is dark and the mailbox is full. Haifu. Same at Tsubasa's. Hold on a second. Hifu. I just talked to the neighbor, and she said they haven't been home all week. She thinks it has something to do with the grandfather. Akane. I wouldn't say I like this. Dahlia. This isn't right. We need to do something. Cammy. I will go to the police station to see if they can help. Akane. It is a long shot, but does anyone know where the grandfather lives? Haifu. He used to live here in Mustafa. He had a medical practice, but I don't know where I will do the same thing as Cammy. Dahlia. I think I found it. It isn't too far from my house. I am going to go check it out. According to the web, it is open for another hour. They said he was there when I called. Cammy. Police can't do anything. I am not family, and just because my friend isn't answering their phone is not a good enough reason. Haifu. Same a few hours later. Akane. Dahlia, did you find anything? Akane. Dahlia, Cammy. She isn't answering her phone. Dahlia. Sorry, there is nobody here. The entire office is gone. Akane. Then, who did you talk to? Dahlia. I tried calling the number back, but there was no answer. It came back as disconnected. Something is weird. Haifu. I wouldn't say I like this, but you should get away from there. Dahlia. Yeah, I am heading home now. Akane. We need someone to listen to us. I will talk to my mom when she gets home and see if she can do something. Cammy. This is freaking me out. I am going home. Maybe I can talk to a pro hero on the way home and see if they will help. Haifu. Cammy, Dahlia, please text the chat when you get home. Dahlia. You do the same. Cammy. For sure, sometimes you need some help from a friend. Akane didn't even let her mother get more than a single shoe off before she started asking her for help. Inko was taken back and made Akane stop and take a deep breath. Once Inko could sit her daughter down, she listened to the story. Tsubasa could be dealing with a family emergency, and Nini's parents worked, so their not being home right now is reasonable, Inko said. Oddly, no one is answering their phone, I agree. And the medical practice is a bit weird. I think I have heard the name Tsubasa before, but not as your friend. Inko took her daughter's hand. Just try and calm down. I can't order a health check for your friends. I am not their doctor and have no reason to do so. But Mom, Akane pleaded. Akane, there are rules, and if I lie about being their doctor on the paperwork, even if you are right, I can get into serious trouble, Inko said. Not only can I get fired, but if nothing is wrong, we can be sued, and I could revoke my medical license. Akane stopped. I will do everything I can, but don't jump to conclusions for now. Akane sighed and went about her night. She felt relief when she got the message that everyone had returned home safe. For some reason, she was afraid that the streets would somehow swallow them up. She went online and tried to see if she could find anything. She found the listing for the medical practice, but that was it. The website is 404, and only some basic reviews can be found anywhere else. Nothing of substance, which didn't make sense. Tsubasa had said his grandfather had been a doctor for decades. Maybe his patient base had aged away, and he was retiring. Akane sighed. She wasn't going to get anywhere tonight, so she made her way to bed. Akane didn't sleep well. She had troubled dreams and tossed and turned all night. The room's shadows were darker, any sound louder. Her mind was determined to make everything and anything to make her jump. It was 4 a.m. as she lay in her bed, her forearm across her head, staring at the ceiling. Was her mind creating a mystery or drama? Was none? Was it just possible that Tsubasa and Nini had what was supposed to be a weekend excursion to help his grandfather turn into some emergency? Maybe Nini had hurt herself and needed to rest. Lost charger, poor signal. There were so many questions, but where were Nini's parents? Perhaps it was a severe injury, and they had to rush to be by her side. It was worrisome. The thought that maybe all of them had been in some car accident and were seriously injured would explain why neither was answering the phone, where Nini's parents were. It wasn't a comforting thought, but it explained many things. Tsubasa's grandfather could have had a small patient base, older patients who didn't do things like reviews, and with them aging, his leaving the area could have been him retiring. It didn't explain Dahlia talking to someone claiming to be his office. Then the line was disconnected, the wrong number was on the website, and they blocked her after a bit of fun. None of these were satisfying answers, but they made some sense. Maybe she should have talked to Izuku. He would have helped if they had asked. She knew he would even help them look for Bakugo if they asked. He wasn't close with the others but a real friend with connections. She could ask him for help tomorrow, and if they found something, he could bring it to his mom or uncles. They were pro-heroes. She was sure they would listen if Izuku spoke. It was too early to bother him, she would wait longer. When she called him at 8 a.m., she was nearly expecting voicemail, but instead, she was greeted with a chipper good morning and laughter. "I am not interrupting you, am I?" Akane inquired. "No, just making breakfast with my mom," he replied. "Is everything okay?" "No, maybe, I was wondering if you would be willing to help me out some, and if anything weird is happening, maybe you would be willing to talk to your family and see if they would look into it." Akane winced some as she said it. She knew his family were pro-heroes, and she was trying to convince him to believe her madness. "Talk to Akane," Izuku said. "Tell me what is going on." "Okay. So you know that Tsubasa and Nini haven't been in school all week and," Akane began to explain. "And that is everything. Something is bothering me, and I am apprehensive. I know it is silly." "Akane," he said, cutting her off. "They're your friends, and you are worried about them. I may not be close to them, but they are important to you and, therefore, me." "Thank you, Izuku. Thank you so much," Akane said. "Let me eat breakfast and take a shower," he said. "I will be at your house in about an hour. Is that okay with you?" Yes, Akane said. True to his word, he landed on the sidewalk and rang the doorbell in about an hour. Akane opened the door, and seeing him standing there with a smile helped calm her. "I almost forgot you can fly sometimes," Akane said as she locked the door. "Can we head to Nini's house first?" "Of course. Can you show me where it is on a map?" "I have never been there before," he replied. Akane typed in the address and showed it to him. She saw him look it over before he nodded. Then she saw him blush. "So how do you want me to carry you?" Akane looked at him quizzically, and then she realized what he meant. Images flashed through her head, and she gave a silent thanks that she wasn't a skirt kind of girl and was wearing jeans. How do you normally do it?" She blushed. "Well, the only other person I have flown besides Mina is my mom," he managed to say. "Either I carry you around your waist or the bridle, the other way, I don't think I can do it." "What is the other way?" Akane squeaked out. "You stand on my feet, and we face each other," he said. "Let's try the waist, and if that doesn't work, maybe the other way," Akane said. Akane was blushing as it was more like she was hugging his side, as his arm slipped around her waist and pulled her in tight. Mina is a lucky girl, she thought. He asked if she was ready, and even though she said she was not. The ascension was similar to that day at the beach when they went sideways. That was a different story. She buried her head in his chest at first, but by the time she hazarded a look, they were already coming down. She stepped away once they landed and held her hand over her heart. "That was an experience," she said. He just laughed, earning a punch to the shoulder. They walked up, noticing the entire mailbox, rang the doorbell, and waited. Of course, they were greeted with silence. Izuku looked around the front of the house. Akane went to the front-facing window, but the blinds were closed. "Well, unless we decide to see if we can look in a window and more than likely get the cops called on us. I don't know what else to do," she said. Izuku weighed the pros and cons, activating his X-ray vision, and the doors to the house peeled away. He silently prayed that no one was walking naked or in the bath. As he looked about the house, it was dark. No lights were on. He noticed it was strangely quiet. He focused his hearing, and there was no hum of electronics at all. No power was running to the house. He looked into the kitchen. There was a knocked-over pot, and uneaten food was spoiling on the table. A few photos at the stairway were askew. From all his training, it looked like signs of a struggle. Even without his training, it looked like signs of a battle. He didn't see any bodies or anything, no large pools of blood, but there was some blood. Great, how do I report this? What I just did was illegal. Pulling himself back, he noticed a fundamental thing. The front door was unlocked. "Well?" Akane said. Izuku reached out and tried the door. The handle turned. He looked at Akane, and she nodded. He pushed open the door, and as soon as they did, the stench of the rotten food hit them. Akane froze, but when Izuku pushed further in, she followed right behind him. When they reached the stairs and saw the pictures askew and one broken, they stopped and backed up and out of the house. "We need to contact the police," Izuku said, pulling out his phone. Akane nodded and sent a message to the group. "Akane. We are calling the cops now." Kami. "Holy shit. I didn't even think of trying the door, now I feel fucking stupid." Haifu. "That is terrifying." Dahlia. Should we check Tsubasa's door to see if it is open? Akane. Let's wait to see what the police say. We will tell them about Tsubasa. Maybe meet us here so you can talk to the police about the doctor's office and other stuff. Dalian. OKOMW Kami. Me too. Haifu. Dito. Yes, officer, we will be standing right in front, Izuku said. After he disconnected the call, he called his mother. Hi, Mom. Midnight hung her head, and she knew that tone of voice. The police arrived very quickly and moved Izuku and Akane to the side as they entered the house. They came out 20 minutes later, looked at the kids, and called a detective. His mother arrived before the detective. She wasn't in costume. When the detective arrived, he heard his mother whisper, "Fuck. Mom." He whispered. When this detective asks you how you knew the door was unlocked, tell him that you saw that it was, Midnight said. He is going to ask you how? Tell him it was your quirk. He is very smart, and his quirk is a lie detector. Izuku's eyes widened. If things get dicey, I will talk to him. Detective Naomasa is a tall man with short black hair and somewhat rectangular black eyes. As a detective, he is usually seen in his uniform, which consists of his signature tan overcoat and matching hat, underneath which he wears a black suit, a green tie at his neck with matching slacks, and dress shoes. Midnight breathed a sigh of relief when a very petite, young-looking girl with blonde hair and light purple eyes appeared no older than the kids, if even younger. She wore a black suit but no tie. Her color was unbuttoned. "Hello, I am Detective Hiro," she said. "I understand that my appearance may cause you to wonder if I am old enough to do this job, but I assure you that I am. My quirk is a healing factor, so I look rather youthful." "Who are you, miss?" she said to Midnight. "I am Nomori Kayama. This is my son. He called me after he contacted the police," Nomori said. "I am the pro hero, Midnight." Detective Hiro, eyebrows raised. Nomori presented her official identification. "Since my son is involved, I did not enter the house or make my presence known to the officers as that would violate the Hero Code A1278.902. My presence here is to be a counsel for my son." "I understand," Hiro said. "I don't believe it will be necessary for your name to be attached to the investigation. You have done much to make sure that news of your child has not reached the public, and unless something dictates otherwise, I will do so." "Thank you, Detective," Nomori said, stepping back. "Will you two please identify yourselves?" Detective Hiro said. Akane and Izuku did so. "Ms. Midoriya, as you are not here with a parent or guardian, do you wish to continue to speak with me, or would you like to wait for the legal counsel or your guardian to be present?" Akane felt slightly nervous but took a deep breath and told Detective Hiro how it all started when Nini, who lived with her and her boyfriend Tsubasa, didn't come to school on Monday. Akane told the detective how her other friends had come to the house and went to Tsubasa's house and the strangeness with his grandfather's doctor's office. They went to the police and were told they couldn't do anything. "Why did you come back today?" Detective Hiro asked. "Because I know who Izuku's mom is, and I hope that if we found something, maybe she would look into it deeper," Akane said. "He is more my friend than the rest." Detective Hiro turned to Izuku and listened to his story. She asked him why he tried the door. He told her he knew how worried Akane and the rest were, and it didn't seem like it would hurt anything. If they were home, he would have to apologize, but the mystery would be solved. But they smelled something rotting, and then they saw the stairs, so they backed up immediately and called the police. "Did you notice anything else?" she asked. "The house was quiet and dark like the power was off," he said. It wasn't long after that the others showed up, and she took their statements. She told them all to wait there while she went inside the house. She came out and said that officers would be sent to Tsubasa's home and that they may need to follow up with them if they had any more questions. She then cut them loose. When the police checked Tsubasa's home, it was intact, with no signs of struggle. Still, the family cat had been left unattended without food and water. They forwarded the address to his grandfather, who was in another abandoned home. The Tsubasa's employers knew they would be out of town this weekend, but they were expected back by Monday. No calls or emails have been received, and all attempts to contact them have gone unanswered. Nini's parents were